It's showtime.
Okay, Tokyo, South America, Australia, France, Germany, Africa.
Here we go. Head On with Bob Kincaid. 3 hours of conversation, cussing, and a discussin' with America's only born and bred Southern liberal talk host. Head On with Bob Kincaid is brought to you each night by Coal River Mountain Watch. Coal River Mountain Watch invites you to become part of the solution, part of a sustainable future, part of the uprising against mountaintop removal. Coal River Mountain Watch, crmw.net. And now, from high in the hills of beautiful West Bicod, Virginia, here's Bob Kincaid on the Head On Radio Network.
Well, howdy. And here we are off and running with a brand new week, the midpoint of the month of April 2019. This is The Horn. Headon.live is where we live. That's where you go on the interweb tubes. If you'd like to be part of the merry, madcap, wacky, zany, real-time multimedia extravaganza that is The Horn chat room in the 3 hours in which this program is live from 6 to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday of almost all weeks. Just pick yourself out a screen name and a password at the chat room tab. Jump right in. You'll be immediately greeted by the likes of early arrivers Anatole, Otto, and Squeaky. Capably moderated by longtime inveterate, indefatigable veteran chat room moderator Sparky, who, although a spacing guildmaster, has decided on this day not to fold space. Sometimes it's, you know, the mood is not right for space folding. So, hi, I'm Bob Kincaid. It's Moran Monday, and what a Moran Monday it is. I presume that everybody hearing this by now knows about the horrible, heartbreaking conflagration at Notre Dame de Paris, as that magnificent piece of Gothic architecture from the High Middle Ages went up in flames today. More on that momentarily. But the first thing we do with every program is to express gratitude. Gratitude to those who are subscribers who, our subscribers knock out about a month or a quarter of the month's funding in any given month, and April is no different. So thanks go out to Darlene in Connecticut, Robert in California, Timothy. Thank you, Timothy. Thank you, Matt in San Francisco. Thank you, Ralphs. Thank you to Greg. Thank you very kindly to Gary and Gaia out in Oregon. Thank you to Kay. And, those are our subscribers. We have a brand new Patreon subscriber. So thanks going out to Aaron. Thank you, Aaron, for becoming a new Patreon subscriber and helping to take care of some of the costs of doing this program. Thank you very kindly, Aaron. If you would like to be a subscriber, well, this would be a good month to become one, because we could begin with a message from our buddy Tony out in Chico. Tony's been a subscriber about as long as we've had subscriptions available, pretty sure. One of the longest standing. And so I got a note from Tony today. Tax day trauma, paying for our massive national debt. Want to do a subscriber challenge. Happy tax day, Bob, unless you're Donald Trump. Believe me, Tony, I'm not Donald Trump. To help build up the subscriber base for the Horn, I would like to do a subscriber match challenge for the rest of April. For the rest of this month, I will match dollar for dollar new subscriptions up to a total of $50. That's $10 times 5 subscribers, or $25 times 2 subscribers, or $5 times 10 subscribers, however it works out. But having 5 new $10 a month subscribers would be awesome. So big thanks going out to Tony for this challenge. So your first month subscription, either via PayPal or Patreon, well, Tony's going to double it up to $50. So if you subscribe at $10, your first month is $20. By way of not just us saying thank you, but in particular, Tony and the rest of the subscribers saying thank you for joining in the effort to remain a sustaining member of the community. And remember, at $10 a month, it works out to a little, well, probably, if you count Dr. Bill in there too, it works out to less than 15 cents per hour of programming. And as I've said before, when I wander around the Rippy Mart, there aren't very many 15-cent items in there anymore. They don't do loose bubble gum anymore, but I guess because, thievery or whatever. But there's not a lot out there you can get for 15 cents. If 1 hour of this program went up, say the filibuster every evening just went up on iTunes, and you had to pay for it, you couldn't get it for 15 cents. So that's a huge offer. Thank you, Tony. Thank you so very, very much. And maybe we'll get, hopefully, and again, we've got the rest of the month to do this. 5 new $10 a month subscribers, and one $50 a month subscriber. That would be amazing. And Zoom, there we'll go. And up to $50, Tony will double it. So thank you. Thank you. Hopefully, maybe we'll see some of that happening this evening. Thank you, Scott in San Diego. Loud and clear on the bus heading home. Good, good, good. Listening via the White Rose Society stream. Excellent, excellent news. Brother Deacon Asa letting me know. Hot and heavy on the Moran brain train, Conductor Kincaid. We're good on Head On Live and Head On Live, and good on White Rose Society. Like I said, we'll be dealing with the Paris issue. Note coming in. Oh, and what's the fundraising goal? Yeah, because I have to be out tomorrow night. Remember, this is that's a program note. I got family coming in. We have to be out tomorrow night. So the fundraising goal all this week is going to be $250 a night, so that we can take care of that thing tomorrow too. But $250 tonight, every night this week. 10 at 25, 25 at 10, 2 at 1 1/4, 2 at 125, and then from, 62.50 times 4, 31 1/4 times 8. And then my head starts hurting because doing that kind of ciphering on the fly makes it just, ugh. Yeah. Oh, no worries, Jimmy. Jimmy says, sorry, Bob, you didn't get my $20 this month. PayPal's making me jump through hoops, so it'll be contributing through Patreon. That's fine, Jimmy. Thank you very kindly, just the same. Any way people help is great help. And please remember the essential difference between Patreon and PayPal is that all the Patreons come out on the same day, namely the first day of the month. But we're at 250. Run over to headon.live, click the Contribute tab that way. And then if you want to use the U.S. Postal Service, well, the mailing address is on the website as well. 1038 North Eisenhower Drive, PMB 318, Beckley, Beckley, WV 25801. Mike in Cascadia writes, a couple of thoughts on the tragedy of Notre Dame Cathedral today. If the cathedral was in the U.S. and it had coal under it, Trump and the GOP would raise it in a heartbeat. God, that's so true. So true. When Trump and Utah gutted Bears Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante national monuments, they essentially did the same thing to those magnificent landscapes full of archaeological and paleontological remains that this fire is doing to Notre Dame. Bannon the disruptor at the Vatican politicking against the Pope. Notre Dame Cathedral burns today. Connections? In these times of disruption with Trump and Brexit and yellow vests, the mind wonders. If you Google Bannon and arson, there are dozens of articles describing him as such. Sad day. Cheers, Mike. Steve in New York asks, Moran brain train? Is that like a train without a head? That's the beginning, yes. So, well, we might as well do this right. Yeah, let's get after this. Here.
You've got to remember that these are just simple farmers. These are people of the land. You know, morons.
Hurry, 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 step right up. It's Moran Monday on the Horn. Yes, we've got 'em all here. Inside this thin cybernetic veil of canvas, you'll find every kind of Moran imaginable. Birthers, deathers, ninthers, tenthers, birchers, booger eaters, maggots, libertarians, Republicans, anti-vaxxers, every sort of Moran under the sun. And they're all here for your delectation. Indeed, indeed, indeed. You're just steps away from the carnival midway where only moments ago you were throwing ping pong balls at goldfish bowls in a desperate attempt to win a little baby iguana that will grow to the size of a Volkswagen Beetle and be able to eat your entire family someday. Yes, you've stepped away and you've stepped up, come up the ramp, and you're waiting to enter the Moran Monday tent. You can't tell the Morans without a program, and this is the program that tells the Morans. For less than 15 cents per hour of programming on the Horn, it's all right here for you every Monday through Friday. And Monday afternoons, occasionally Tuesday afternoons, and Wednesday afternoons sometimes with Dr. Bill O'Brien. So it's all here. Remember, a note, when entering the Moran Monday tent, please be so kind as to keep a close hand on watches, wallets, billfolds, purses, fanny packs, dogs, cats, children, and yes, even that precious little iguana that you won throwing ping pong balls at goldfish bowls, even European messenger bags, as the Morans can get grabby. Head for the hills, or you'll be up to your armpits in Morans. And, well, this is just one of those days. Nothing really brings out the Moranity like a tragedy, a horrifying loss of a great cultural masterpiece. And it would not be Moran Monday, and it wouldn't be 2019, and this wouldn't be Merca if the lead Moran in such a moment was not the present occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. True enough, searching for a silver lining to some terribly gray clouds, Flavio notes, subject line, Notre Dame. Well, at least Trump didn't recommend raking the floor of the cathedral to prevent future fires. Ron in Raleigh pointing out, subject line, Notre Dame, they've saved the stone shell of the cathedral. It took 200 years to construct the edifice. If the building was to be rebuilt, it would probably take twice as long. Stonemasons and carvers are no longer in existence as they once were, so craftsmen would have to be trained. It took nearly the entire Gothic period to construct the cathedral. We will not be around to see it resurrected. They don't even understand. And it's not just the stonework. We should point that out. It's the woodwork, too. Modern science did not understand, before the fire took it all away, modern science did not understand the joinery that was used to make that magnificent roof stay in one place and not collapse on itself. Just as we don't understand the joinery that was used by the great shipbuilding societies, whether it be the Vikings or the ancient Venetian, the Renaissance, Middle Ages Venetians, the Athenians, even the British, their carpenters and wrights that built the Navy of Empire. It is literally a science that is lost to time, because in a changing world, there are often losses such as that when we stop working in those particular areas. The great carpenters who built the whaling fleets, the great whaling fleet of the United States in the 19th century. Well, when we stopped whaling, a lot of that craft went by the boards. The rise of steam power, the ability to make ships out of metal, and so too with the master craftsmanship that went into the great Gothic cathedrals, castles, and the like. Stonemasons. Ron is right, noting also the idiot in chief. Well, yeah, we're going to get there. He is our number one Moran for today. It's inescapable. There are other Morans, but there's no grandfathering him out. Wow. Simply breathtaking degrees of stupiditas, if that's even a Latin word. I know Monique mentioning something that I thought about as well. Notre Dame even survived the Second World War. Paris was bombed by the Germans in the First World War. It survived that too. How sad. How unutterably sad. It will now look like, for a great time to come, a ruin standing in the midst of the city of light. The good news is that they have saved the towers, but 2/3 of the roof was destroyed. Emmanuel Macron, president of France, said the worst has been avoided. But that worst is certainly a relative time, or a relative term. Otto says it was August 1978, and I had the luck to be a student at that time, but managed to witness a lunar eclipse one night with a view of the cathedral, and the moon in the background was something you never forget. So sad, so sad. So what's the first thing that comes into what passes for a mind of Julius Caesar? Yeah. He ran to the Twitter to declare, "So horrible to watch the massive fire at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Perhaps flying water tankers could be used to put it out. Must act quickly." Oh, fascinating. David in South Carolina Stan points out a tweet. The ceiling of Notre Dame contained wood from 13,000 oak trees that were cut in the 12th century. An entire forest, essentially. And those oak trees were probably themselves hundreds of years old. Some perhaps germinated from acorns that had fallen, who knows, from the oaks in the sacred groves of the Druids, which the Romans cut down. Can you imagine that, though? Not the forest. Amazing. But can you imagine? Is it possible to imagine being so well, there's the answer. Inconceivable. That word. He keeps using that word. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. In this case, it means what I mean for it to mean. It is inconceivable for a person of even ordinary intelligence to conceive of being so goddamn stupid that you would not just be stupid, but take your stupid out for a walk on Twitter and suggest bombing a burning building with a vast mass of water dropped at a low level onto superheated stone. Because that's what President Bigley Brain did. That was the suggestion of the very stable genius. Holy shit. The French, who were desperately trying to save one of their greatest cultural artifacts, did take a moment to say, no, that would be dumb. Bless their hearts. I don't know how to go and look around it for on Twitter in French, but it would be interesting to see just how many tweets there are of Donald Trump, and maybe subtweets that say something like "Quel idiot!" What an idiot! But no, not idiot. Moran. Get a brain, Moran. And that wasn't the all of it. No, he went to some meeting today in Minnesota. And at that meeting in Minnesota, well, we found out what the Notre Dame blaze was really about. Yeah. It was really about him.
Stepping to President Trump.
Notre Dame Cathedral is something like few people have witnessed. When we left, we had a whole group of your great representatives, and when we left the plane, it was burning at a level that you rarely see a fire burn. It's one of the great treasures of the world, the greatest artists in the world. Probably, if you think about it, I would say, Jovita, it might be greater than almost any museum in the world, and it's burning very badly. It looks like it's burning to the ground. So that puts a damper on what we're about to say, to be honest, because that is beyond countries, that's beyond anything. That's a part of our growing up. It's a part of our culture. It's a part of our lives. That's a truly great cathedral.
Can't stand much more than that. The lives and labors of generations of human beings. And how does he describe it? A truly great cathedral. As if there are some untruly not so great cathedrals. One of the things about the Gothic cathedrals is that they were designed to the glory of God, so to speak. But what they were was a massive demonstration of the power of community. When a cathedral was built, again, it was nominally to the glory of God, but it was also an expression of what a community felt about itself. It would be the see of the local bishop, but the masons were involved, and the carpenters, and the weavers, and the artisans who worked in stained glass. And there was an army of people to be fed. And so when you look at a cathedral, what you're seeing is community. Stop telling us what we're seeing when we look at a cathedral, Bob. There, I took care of that for you. No need. But it's a magnificent expression of public will. And it's happening at a time in the Middle Ages when, in many ways, the community, we tend to think of it as the Dark Ages, but we're finding out more and more that they weren't as dark as we think they were. Yes, there were excesses but it was a functioning community. There are so many things that so many people don't know about that era. But I was reminded today of an exhibition that we went to back in February of 2018 of illuminated manuscripts. And one of them was a book of days with these beautiful, beautiful paintings on paper of daily life in the Middle Ages. And it probably represented a degree of functionality that hadn't been seen since the fall of the empire. And so, even as a non-religionist, I can see something like the fire today and recognize that it had far more gravity, far more import than merely being a truly great cathedral. But this is a president of very small brain. And he really doesn't give a fuck. That's why he doesn't even bother looking around for any words to give greater gravity to a situation of extreme import. But being a history nerd, I also got to thinking about Paris itself, what that place is. Went and checked around a little bit. Wasn't too long ago, just a few years, that archaeologists digging in a Paris neighborhood on the left bank of the Seine discovered the oldest known human remains in the area. Turns out that human beings have been engaged in the business of being human in roughly the same area as where Notre Dame is. Since about 8,000 BCE. Curiously, those hunter-gatherers of the Mesolithic era, Middle Stone Age, given that time frame, probably weren't white folks. Because around 7,000 BCE is when we first start seeing evidence of European people turning white. But they were living out their lives right then and there, not at all far from where Notre Dame is situated. And then on the very island, the Île de la Cité, he said with his terrible French pronunciation, a subgroup of the of Gauls called the Parisii, well, they had a shrine. Notre Dame was actually built on top of the ruins of a Roman temple, which in turn was built on top of the ruins of a previous Celtic temple. I don't know if you're watching American Gods or not, but one of the things that passed through my mind was, it's a good thing I get to be a secularist and a humanist and not a superstitionist, because it'd be enough to make you think that maybe the old gods were getting a little pissed off. But I don't have to think that way. I also don't have to think that, well, I mean, if there's any deity at work here, and there's nothing funny about any of this, but if there is any deity at work here at all, it has to be, because she is the only real deity, the goddess of irony, who is no goddess at all, but rather a force. Irony is a force in the universe, just like gravity. And so, a Roman Catholic Church that remains awash in horrifying incidents, a pandemic of child rape by its priest class, possibly the second greatest manifestation of that religion's presence on earth outside St. Peter's itself, catches fire and burns. If I were someone who believed in supernatural forces, if I were someone who believed in what Carl Sagan referred to as the demon-haunted world, I couldn't help but see something like what happened today as a manifestation of extreme divine fury. Lucky for us, we don't have to think that way. Meanwhile, Scott in San Diego, how do you say irretrievably stupid in French, Bob? It's readily apparent that Trump knows about as much about firefighting as he does about president. Those old cathedrals are pretty resilient. York Minster, a cathedral in York, England, was struck by lightning in 1984, which resulted in a fire. After £2.5 million in repairs, it was made whole. It, too, is a huge cathedral, though I'm not sure how it compares in size to Notre Dame. That said, the York Minster blaze wasn't anywhere close to what this one looks to be. When I visited York in early 1985, the work on the cathedral was still going on, so I didn't get to visit it. I did have a chance to visit BBC Radio York, which was nearby, and they interviewed me as I was a visiting radio guy from the States. I'll need to unearth that tape and post it. But I digress. The present York Minster dates back to about the middle of the 8th century. Those old structures were definitely built to last. Meanwhile, the particulars on the Tangerine Tiberius' suggestion, Flavio notes, flying water tankers release about 6 tons of water straight down at very high velocity. They're seldom used in urban settings for fear of injuring the people below and or damaging the structures. Yes. And when that cold water hit that superheated stone, the damn thing might have just blown up. It happens. But it is interesting to think. Well, I even if I'm not seeing it as some sort of divine manifestation, I don't. These things happen. It is still possible to look and say, in the waning years of the second decade of the 21st century, could this be a metaphor for a changing world? The pyramids in Egypt, built by brown people, are thousands of years older than Notre Dame. They're still standing. Cortez invading the Valley of Mexico under his flag of blood and gold exactly 500 years ago this year, eventually destroyed a city more beautiful than Venice itself, which was seen as the benchmark standard of European city beauty. And he tried to tear down what is referred to in Spanish as the Templo Mayor, the great pyramid at the center of the city. He tore down the entire city. But as recent excavations have demonstrated, he was unable even to accomplish that because the base of that massive pyramid still remains. In Cusco, in Peru, massive stonework still remains that we have no way of understanding how those people, how much genius was involved in moving stones that the Spaniards themselves couldn't have moved had they had Archimedes there to work out the details. But those indigenous people did. A metaphor for a changing world. And Paris, they will rebuild. It will be a long time in the rebuilding. Ask and it shall be answered unto you. Answering Scott, Flavio gives us the French translation Scott was looking for. I'll do my best with this. Irrémédiablement stupide. Irrémédiablement stupide. That's irredeemably stupid. or irremediably stupid. Thank you, Flavio. Flavio is always good. Thank you. It's good to have multilingual members of our community when we need to figure out a way to describe the biggest idiot in America in a different language, without a doubt. But it's Moran Monday, and of course, over there to Fox News TV Radio Rwanda, who did they go to comment on the fire? Did they maybe try to get someone to translate the head of the fire service? No, they went to Bill Donahue, that creepy old asshole who does things like run campaigns against artists who had. Bill Donahue would have been very happy if only he could time travel back and be a member of the Inquisition. Because in Bill Donahue's world, people just need some sense burned into them. But it didn't work out so well. They brought Bill Donahue in to talk with Neil Cavuto. And you know how it gets when maybe one of your house guests has gotten a little too far down into the wine bottle at dinner and starts raving down there at the end of the table, and folks sort of start looking at each other and, yeah, well, it's been lovely. Gotta get home. Gotta feed the cat. Yeah, I hear my dog calling me. Right. Well, that kind of happened over on Fox News TV Radio Rwanda. Yeah, by the way, Monique pointing out, not being a conspiracy theorist, but I pray this has nothing to do with that bastard Steve Bannon and his railing against the current pope that MSNBC stupidly played last night. But in this current toxic environment, you got to ask. I understand, and we'll probably get to that, some of that, too. But first, because it's Moran Monday, Bill Donahue of the Catholic League.
Ben Hall, thank you very, very much. The latest from Ben Hall there. We are expecting to hear from French President Emmanuel Macron, who has been meeting with fire officials, wants to get to the bottom of not only what happened, but how it started. We also have gotten a statement out of the Vatican. Keep in mind, this is technically a Catholic church. The Vatican saying that the Holy See, that refers to the Pope, has seen the shot.
Technically? Technically a Catholic church? Technically. This is like a Certs commercial for morans. It's two morans in one. Certs, or Fox, now with Moranson. Technically a Catholic church. Yeah, I guess the way that Disneyland is technically an amusement park, not just the land of Disney.
Shock and sadness of the news of the terrible fire that has devastated the Cathedral of Notre Dame, a symbol of Christianity in France and the world. The statement goes on to say that the Vatican is praying for firefighters and those who are doing everything possible to confront this dramatic situation. It also, referring to the Vatican, expressed our closeness to French Catholics and the population of Paris, and we assure our prayers for firefighters. We expect to hear from the U.S. Cardinal Timothy Dolan, whose St. Patrick's Cathedral within his diocese, of course, pays homage to Notre Dame. He will be talking about a common bond between the people of this country, not only just Catholics, but of this country, period, and to the French people as well, mourning a huge loss of cultural and emotional significance. Catholic League President Bill Donahue joins you right now on the phone. Bill,
get the hockey
don't know
puck.
what
Quick,
started
I forgot
this.
to tell you.
We
Get
do
the
know
hockey
the repercussions and what has been left as a result of this. Ruins, and ruins that could take some time to fix and make right, and you never can make it.
Ruins, which of course is different from Rouen, which was an ancient seat of the French kings, but It's not like that even dawns on them over at Fox News TV Radio Rwanda. But no, Bill Donahue, get the hockey puck, really. I'm not kidding.
As it was.
Well, Neil, if it is an accident, it's a monumental tragedy. But forgive me for being suspicious.
Oh, it didn't take long. If it is an accident. Ah, who burned it down, Bill? The Muslims? The Illuminati? The Jews? Jesus Christ. So that's what it is out of the gate. Don't get any better.
Just last month, a 17th century church was set on fire in Paris. We've seen tabernacles knocked down. Crosses have been torn down.
Oh, by the way, while the Chlamydia Claudius jumped right out there to start tweeting and blithering. By the way, we have a musical suggestion. This will involve singing. I apologize, but hell, we got $250 to raise this evening. We're 46 minutes into the program. We're at 0, so I'm singing, damn it. We have a musical selection from Scott in San Diego. Feel free to sing along if you know all the words. All together now. Trump's tweets are alive with the sound of stupid. Yes. Here. That's not for me singing. That's for Scott's idea. Right. Yes. Maybe this is the cause. I'm sure you heard, says Ron in Raleigh, Pope Benny, ex-Pope Benny, retired Pope Benny, said that all depravity in the Catholic priesthood could be blamed on the sexual revolution of the 1960s. In other words, not our fault. P.S. The Illuminati were deists. Wow, that's everything. But, yeah, Pope Benny said that priests raping little boys and old priests raping nuns and many of things that happened before the 1960s, the Magdalen laundries in Ireland didn't happen as a result of the sexual revolution of the 1960s, but it was all because of the sexual depravity of the 1960s and the fact that women got a little pill they could take to keep from having to be pregnant all the time. If you were one of those people who lived in that demon-haunted world and you realized that Pope Benny had said that just in the last few days, all of a sudden, the finger of God reaching down and zapping Notre Dame, although not wishing ill on any other structure, you'd think it would have been a German cathedral. But then again, this is the kind of God who sends out bears to rip little boys to pieces for making fun of a prophet's bald spot. So what do you want? Yeah, Pope. But that's the kind. Well, and maybe it was the goddess of irony. Oh, Benny, you did not just say that. Right. Back to Bill Donahue. What I was going to say in the first place. So Trump jumped out there to tweet about this fire at Notre Dame. Guess what fires Trump has not said diddly shit about? The 3 fires in historically black churches in Louisiana that were started by the white guy who's the son of a sheriff's deputy in Caddo Parish, Louisiana. Not a word. Those, I guess, were not truly great churches. They were black churches. So they were probably hardly churches at all. And the guy is probably a white supremacist, so he might, the arsonist may actually be a very fine person, according to Trump.
Statues have been smashed.
We don't know that. We don't know. So if we can avoid what your suspicions might be, I do want to look at what happens now.
Man, when Bill Donahue's too paranoid, even for Neil Cavuto at Fox News TV, Radio Rwanda, Bill jumped the shark back when he was encouraging people to murder a sculptor who sculpted a great big, bigger than life-size chocolate Jesus that didn't have a white chocolate loincloth and wasn't made out of white chocolate in the first place. It was all brown chocolate and had a little chocolate Jesus schmeckle hanging there on the cross. And well, Bill Donahue whipped up a murder mob over that one. The guy had to go into hiding. but that's just Bill Donahue. Let's catch this in full, and I won't interrupt it this time.
Make it as it was.
Well, Neil, if it is an accident, it's a monumental tragedy. But forgive me for being suspicious. Just last month, a 17th century church was set on fire in Paris. We've seen tabernacles knocked down. Crosses have been torn down. Statues have been smashed.
We don't know that. We don't know. So if we can avoid what your suspicions might be, I do want to look at what happens now. There was a very pricey rebuilding and renovation effort going on that involved a good deal of Catholic fundraising campaigns. I know in this country and abroad, this renovation was paid for up front. So in other words, all the monies were there. And now I'm wondering how much more the Catholic Church commits to this, or do you think now they first want to get to the bottom of it?
Well, first they have to get to the bottom of it, and they will rebuild it. There's no question about that. And certainly the Catholic Church will come up with the money for it. That's not even a question. But I'm sorry. I mean, when I find out that the Eucharist is being destroyed and excrement is being smeared on crosses,
wait a minute,
this
Bill,
is going on now.
Bill, I love you, Bill, but we cannot make conjectures about this. So thank you very much. Bill, I'm sorry. Thank you very, very much.
Wow. When Bill Donahue of the Catholic League is too crazy even for Neil Cavuto. Whew! And, of course, and there's excrement being smeared on crosses. Really? He's still pissed off about Piss Christ. And how many decades ago was that now? Yeah. Regarding Trump and Notre Dame fire versus Louisiana black church fires, the former is a beautiful cathedral, Bob. I'm sure in Trump's shrunken green pea-sized brain, the former houses of worship in Louisiana are shithole churches. That's about it. Yeah. Jack in Shreveport. Just a correction, the parish was St. Landry. Caddo is the parish Shreveport is in. My bad. I thought, okay, one of the churches was in Caddo, but I think they hadn't necessarily connected because it was a white church. And it wasn't necessarily connected to the guy who burnt the three churches. Okay, thank you. St. Landry Parish. I appreciate the correction. Thank you, Jack. So, stupid. We have it. In an embarrassment of riches. But like I said, the Tangerine Tiberius' suggestion to bomb the church to save it, it did not go over too well with the French.
The next hour and a half will be crucial, he said.
This is the coverage from CNN.
Joining me now on the phone is the French ambassador to the United States, Monsieur Gerard Araud. Good to talk to you again. I'm sorry it's under these conditions, Mr. Ambassador. When did you learn that Notre Dame was on fire? Tell us your reaction.
Well, you know, I didn't think that I could be so emotional, and I'm still, well, it's unbelievable. You know, for me, it's, and for us, for the French, it's the symbol of Paris. You know, I can't think of the skyline of Paris without the spire of Notre Dame, you know, which has just collapsed. It's 1,000 years of my history, of it's our national identity which is burning. You know, it's awful. You know, I'm sorry to be so emotional, but you know, there are not words, you know, to say.
No need to apologize. In fact, Mr. Macron said, like all our countrymen, I'm sad tonight to see this part of us burn. The idea that Notre Dame Cathedral is actually not just a building, it is part of all of France, including the French people.
You know, it really, and when I was passing by Notre Dame, you know, really I was looking at Notre Dame without having a feeling, and suddenly I realized, you know, facing this disaster, this destruction, how much it mattered for us, you know, how much it was a part of ourselves.
Ambassador Rowe, do you know, have you been given any indication how close firefighters are to getting this fire out, how confident they are that they will be able to beat back the fire within the next hour and a half?
No, I really, fire is always so unpredictable. Here we are talking of a frame of 30 tons of wood, which is burning. Nobody knows the temperature now inside the cathedral, and as you heard, if the bells of the cathedral really are melting, if they collapse, it's also the two towers which could collapse. So if the firemen don't succeed to stop the fire in 1 hour and a half, all the cathedral was totally destroyed. And it's quite difficult. The fire is at 100 feet, and as was explained, it's not possible to use water tankers, which could only worsen the situation of the building. So I think we have only to pray now.
Do you know anything about, obviously, the architecture of the building and the spire, and losing that is heartbreaking. Do you know anything about the artwork inside Notre Dame Cathedral, the crown of thorns or the holy sacraments that are there?
I read, but I don't have any more information. I read that actually the relics, the holy relics, and part of the art pieces have been evacuated. Especially, as you said, the holy cross, holy thorn. I hope, but I was told where it was evacuated.
The Paris prosecutors have opened an investigation into this fire. Is there any indication that this was intentional as opposed to accidental?
When you have any fire, immediately you have an investigation which is launched, because even if it's an accident, there will be the problem of the responsibility of the accident, from who is responsible, or whether there is a human responsibility in the accident. As you know, there was a big restoration work going on. Part of the church was actually covered by scaffolds, and apparently, but again, apparently the fire started from the scaffold. So we have to wait for the investigation.
Ambassador Aro, thank you for taking time on such an emotional.
So that's what an intelligent person sounds like. On the other hand, Donald Trump is what Donald Trump is what a stupid person thinks an intelligent person sounds like. Holy. Oh, and by the way, the relics that were referred to, a thorn from the crown of thorns. Yeah, that was probably one other of those trinkets that was brought back from Jerusalem when, in a desperate effort to get her out of his hair, Constantine sent his mama on the first, it was really the first reality program. And he gave her a bunch of money and said, go down there and buy anything that has to do with Jesus. Constantine wasn't exactly what you would call a Christian. He was only baptized on his deathbed. But the relics are from, and relics meaning, some portion of the former mortal remains of some saint. The relics relate to Saint-Geneviève and Saint-Denis. And it was a great moment in broadcasting earlier this afternoon when I heard some anchor on MSNBC refer to Saint-Denis as Saint Denis. Yeah, D-E-N-I-S, Denis, D-E-N-N-I-S, Dennis as in the menace. Saint-Denis is the patron saint of France, the whole country. He was said to have been a bishop. In Latin, he was Dionysius, but was said to have been martyred because somebody cut off his head. Right. He was one of 7 bishops that was sent to Gaul to convert those Celtic people to Catholicism. And it was said that the Emperor Valerian ordered his head stricken from his neck. But long about the time that they were just getting around to, it'd be maybe another century or so, when they'd get around to building Notre Dame, well, he was said to have been beheaded on Montmartre, and then his body picked up his noggin and carried it to a Benedictine abbey, which then became the Abbey of Saint Denis. He's kind of, in French mythology, he's sort of like a headless horseman, without the horse. And some little chunk of Saint Denis was said to have been housed at Notre Dame. Then there's Saint Genevieve. And she is her feast day is the 3rd of January. She died somewhere between 80 and 93 years old in Paris, and is said to be the protective saint of Paris. And her tomb was said to do miracles. It wasn't enough to protect that particular tomb from being plundered by the Vikings in 847. Yeah. And they've got some little chunk of her mortal remains. But they say that they have saved those things. And that's, well, especially when you consider that Notre Dame is still technically a church, a Catholic church, technically. Yeah. Oh, I know. See, this is what happens to your mind in the era of Trump, and that's not me being critical. Monique says, how long until Trump tries to fundraise off this so he can hug Macron? I'm beyond cynical with everything this fool does. Well, yes, as a matter of fact, Irish Dave, a headless pederastian. Now, we don't know that he was, but, right. Speaking of morans, what's this? Megan says, as if the loss of Notre Dame wasn't enough, a couple of my local DJs have, while reporting on the fire, suggested you have to be Catholic to appreciate the loss. Because if an asteroid took out Stonehenge right before the summer solstice, you'd have to be a pagan to appreciate that loss, too. Yeah, I know. These events always provide an opportunity for people to be to display monumental degrees of stupidity. Oh, that's right. There was another, Ron and Raleigh pointing out, hey, Bob, you forgot the most important relic was a piece of the cross that Christ was crucified on. Yeah, Helena probably picked that up, too. Every time I think of those religious relic stories, I always think of that great Guido Sarducci bit from the early days of Saturday Night Live when he said he was touring with the Pope and a fellow wanted to sell him the check for the Last Supper. And he said, but I didn't have enough of the money. But I could afford to buy the check to the last brunch. Yeah. Last brunch. See, just a guy who only has a tea and a toast. He's paying the same much as the guy who had the whole lox and bagel. Brilliant. Never split the check evenly. Yeah, Anatole in the chat room pointing out, if Macron was a flag, he'd been done hugged already. Yeah, no kidding. So here we are at the end of the first hour of the program, and we got more Morans. But we are trying to raise $250 tonight so that we can stay even with fundraising through the middle of the month. It would be nice to get that started if we could, please, and so that we won't be dealing with, a $500 fundraising goal come Wednesday. So, every bit, it all just keeps things going. Okay, let's not keep anybody on hold. Let's run over and check in with Scott. Hey, Scott.
Bonjour, Monsieur Kincaid.
Bonjour, Monsieur Scott. Comment
Yes.
comment ça va?
Comment ça va? Is that like comment allez-vous?
No, that's where you say bien, merci et tu.
Well, see, we 12 seconds into it, we've exhausted the totality of my French.
I understand. Mine's mine's already on the ropes.
Except kissing. Come here, get up close. There we go. Give you a wet one right on your lip.
Yeah, let's don't do that and say we done didn't.
Well, I got a couple of things. With this sad news, let me kick off the conversation, as it were, with some good news. Two little chunks of good news, in fact. Chunk number one, apparently a week ago, I got a letter from the housing people. I had forgotten to sign one of the many, many pages of documentation for my semi-annual recertification for help with my cost of housing. And I completely spaced having received this piece of mail. Okay? So I got around to opening it like Saturday, only to find out you had 5 days to sign and return the important document. It was an urgent 5-day notice. Okay? So I freaked the fuck out. All right? And I called the caseworker this morning, because I think they were closed Friday. They're closed like every third Friday or something. Strange situation. And, kind of told a little untruth, if you will. I told a Trumpism. Okay, how's that? And I said that it was delayed in getting to me. And I guess technically it's true. The contents were delayed in getting to me because I didn't read them until Friday, But anyway, long story short, she said just sign it and bring it, which I did. That's where I was coming from on the bus when I wrote in earlier. So that was good news. But on the way back home, the other piece of good news, I had to stop by the pharmacy to pick up a refill. And effective April 1st, I changed my Medicare Part D coverage for medicines. So instead of paying a rather tiny amount for a generic medicine, under this new insurance, most generics, there's no copay at all for people in my situation. So I couldn't have been happier. So that's my two little chunks of good news. Now, at this point, we've been light here. Let's get heavy and talk about spooky old Pope Benedict. And he is spooky old Pope
Oh,
Benedict.
no. He looks like the bastard love child of Emperor Palpatine.
Oh, he's a frightening. I got a photo. I'll have to send it to you. I used to use it as an icon to confuse and befuddle and frighten people. He's got a look on his face like gives you the shivers. Let me take a sip of coffee there.
Well, remember, before he got to go poping, he was the head of the last vestigial remnant of the Inquisition.
Well, yes, you are correct. You are correct, sir.
And even the word vestigial just sounds kind of dirty.
Yeah, like prehensile. Always struck me as kind of kinky or weird or something. But anyway, I had heard this story like a week ago, and the quote, and I'm working from memory here, was that the depravity in the world, in the church today, is due to, you're right, the sexual revolution, but he also chalked it up to the fact, in his feeble mind, that seminarians within the seminaries, the Catholic seminaries around the country and the world, there are gay cliques or cliques. Well, Pope Benny, spooky old Pope Benny, sir, this is not a news flash. In the early 70s, a former Catholic seminarian friend of mine said that the seminaries were loaded with queens, okay? And he said that the one that he had been a part of, when you walked down the hallway of the dormitory, it smelled like the fragrance counter at Woodward and Lothrop, which is a D.C. department store, long defunct, which would be along the lines of, I guess, Macy's in other parts of the country. As a matter of fact, I think Macy's bought Woodward and Lothrop. Very she upscale chain of department stores serving the D.C. area back in the day. So now I heard that, and he was in the seminary in the mid-'60s, and I heard about it from him in the early 70s, and here we are well on our way to the start of the second decade of the 21st century, and spooky old Pope Benny is just getting the word, or just disclosing the word. So, I as a long lapsed Catholic, I'm sorry for the cathedral, but for the people running the organization, that is to say the Roman Catholic Church at large, I have no use for them. They're a waste of human flesh and breath and cubic feet on the earth.
Especially the Bill Donahues of the world.
Oh, that's a crazy old papist.
Well, we've moved to papist. We can't be far from mackerel snappers now, can we?
Well, I can take certain license, having been a Catholic for some years. What is the other? Well, I'm not going to get into derogatory terms for Catholics. 2, 4, 6, 8. Time to transubstantiate. Go, Jesus. But anyway, that old bastard, there's nothing that makes him happy, apparently, other than to see the heads of his political and religious enemies, perceived and otherwise, on the end of pikes. You know, he doesn't have a kind word to say about anybody. And neither do I, for that matter, because I'm giving my little bit of good news today. When I see a work of artistry, would it be artistry if it's done by artisans?
Well, yes.
Yeah,
it would be. It would be artisanal artistry.
Yeah, and that's the best kind, Bob. I've never, like I said in my email, I wasn't able to visit York Minster in the city of York in England because it was undergoing repairs at the time. I've never been to France, so I have not seen Notre Dame. The only cathedral that I've been in, never been to the Crystal Cathedral, and wouldn't go even if I were nearby. I drove past it once. The Windex bill for that place has got to be monumental. Robert Schuler's old, yes, and the birds probably fly into it, because birds, some of them are not all that bright, hence the term bird brain. But the only cathedral I've ever actually been in is the Washington Reagan National. No, wait a minute, that didn't get renamed. The Washington National.
I see what you did there.
The Washington National Cathedral.
I've been in that one.
Oh, what a lovely. And I went on a high school field trip in 1971, I guess it was, and they were still working on it. And they were rushing against the clock and the calendar because artisans, you alluded to this before, artisans who came over from Italy and who knows where else were getting up in years. And the younger generations were not going they were not being tutored or mentored or apprenticed. And just as I think of that term, an apprenticeship in an art form, an artisan type skill, you think of Trump's TV show, so-called reality show, was called The Apprentice. And the two uses of the term could not be, they're as far as the East is from the West. And I don't think I exaggerate. But, this was going on 50 years ago, thereabouts. And they were still working on the damn National Cathedral. Now,
well, these things take some doing. When Ferg and I went there, it was on one of our up doing work on the ACAC, and it's a kind of a bear to get to because it's not like there's any mass transit that runs. That none of the train lines run anywhere near there.
Hey, how long ago was this?
Oh, 4 or 5 years.
I would think that the Washington Zoo, if memory serves me, I haven't been in D.C. for some years, but it seems to me...
No, it's a hike. Believe you me, it's a hike.
And you couldn't find a bus that...
Maybe, well, I've never been on a bus in D.C. because the bus schedules just evade me. But, so we wound up taking a cab.
Yeah.
And they had finally finished. It was done.
Yeah, it's only done.
But here's the thing. So no sooner than they got done with it, a mighty wind blew through, and a bunch of stones from the top of the thing fell off. Blew off. And were embedded in the turf.
Yes, I think I recall that story now that you mention it. And wasn't the Washington National Cathedral damaged in the earthquake down in central Virginia several years back?
I'm not sure about that, but...
Or was it just the Washington Monument?
I think it was... I don't know about the cathedral.
All right, somebody can look that up. I'm pretty sure that...
Yeah, that's a job for the Horn Ad Hoc Research Department.
Thank you. Thank you very much. But... they are these types of edifices, edify, I guess is the proper plural.
No, it's edifices.
They're really?
Yes, it's not Latinate.
Okay, well, they're not.
If it ended in U.S., it would be Latinate, but it ends in FICE.
Are there any cathedrals of that magnitude being built in today's world? I don't think so.
I think they're still building on Gaudi's cathedral in Spain.
No, but what I mean, there's no new ones,
Well, no, that's relatively new, and they're still building it. Antonio Gaudi,
how new is
20th century stuff.
Oh, wait a minute. I saw something on TV about that. Is there a lot of wood in that
There's
one?
a lot of It's very Art Nouveau.
Yes.
Right. Ron and Raleigh informs us the National Cathedral took 83 years to complete, started in 1907, finished in 1990.
Yeah. So
yeah, I remember how dismayed Ferg was, because the reason he wanted to go is his hero, and this is not a joke. His hero is Helen Keller, has been since like fourth grade or third grade, whenever he read his first book about her.
Yeah.
And he wanted to go there to go down into the crypt and pay his respect to where she and Annie Sullivan are entombed.
And I believe the inscription is chiseled in the normal way, and there is also, isn't there a Braille representation?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so.
But what dismayed us is the crypt of the National Cathedral is a tourist trap.
Yeah.
The gift shop. There are people buried in the walls with I Heart National Cathedral T-shirts on sale in front of them, so that you have to wade through the tchotchkes to actually find out who's back there.
Now, isn't there a president or two buried there as well, entombed there? Or
there might be one or I'm not sure.
Taft? Who am I thinking of? No, not Taft. Maybe not.
Megan says
Wilson?
yes. It was damaged in the earthquake from Mineral, Virginia.
Yeah. I thought I recalled something about the cathedral, like one of the windows got the stained glass windows. Did you know? You probably know because you've been there, but to the Warren family who have never been, one of the huge stained glass windows in the National Cathedral has a moon rock embedded in the center of it.
Yeah, it's and now I've been in St. Peter's in Rome.
Yeah.
I saw the cathedral in Cologne at a distance, but that's pretty much my and now this is just a church, but St. Paul's in London.
I know of it.
Right. If you hum a few bars, right. Well, the guy who designed that, Sir Christopher Wren, also built. Also, the guy who designed St. Paul, Sir Christopher Wren, also designed a little church that was bombed out during the Blitz.
Mm-hmm.
And it was brought numbered stone by numbered stone over to the college where I first started school out in Missouri. Kind of a cultural trade kind of thing. It was a deal worked out between Winston Churchill and his old pal, Harry Truman.
Was that in Westminster, Missouri?
Westminster in Fulton, Missouri.
Yeah.
And so they rebuilt the Church of St. Mary Aldermanbury right there on the Freshman Quad, and it houses the Winston Churchill Memorial and Museum in the United States.
Yeah, because that's where he gave his Iron Curtain speech
in
like 49 or something.
And caused the world to about shit itself.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't supposed to say that. And, by the way, Catholic nerdity is the subject line. Stephen New York points out St. Peter's is not a cathedral. No, that's true. It's a basilica.
Yeah.
There's a difference. I think it only matters to basilicas and cathedrals, but yes.
Well, now, wait a minute. Now that you mentioned it, I believe I have been not inside, but around the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in D.C., which is a Catholic. It may be a basilica, but I think it's a cathedral. I don't know. It's been so many years since I paid attention to any of that stuff.
Yeah. By the way, note coming in from Darlene in Connecticut. Is it my imagination, she asks? Or was Trump playing the religion persecution complex today, the RPC? If there's one constant, Darlene says, one thing we can rely upon, it is Trump ruining a condolence with bullshit. And a condolence toward a country that is one of our greatest allies, no less, but that should be no surprise. As inarticulate as he customarily is, I listened to his speech about the burning of Notre Dame and imagined for just a brief moment just a brief moment, that he was as articulate as President Obama and as kind-hearted as President Carter. Just for a moment. I needed the indulgence. Please don't fault me for that. But it was a very brief indulgence until he mentioned what the French had theorized was the cause of the fire. The renovations. Renovations, whatever that means, said Trump. Yeah, he did. Was he kidding? Whatever that means, the douchebag will use anything to play the evangelical part of his base.
Wait a minute. Am I missing something? Was the cathedral undergoing...
Yeah, 6.5 million euros worth. As they noted in the Fox segment I played, it was, get the money up front, get the money up front, get the money up front.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the first 3 rules of lawyering. Get the money up front, get the money up front, get the money up front.
When do I pay you, sir?
But
you want the money now?
So they had the money already, and the whole and a big chunk of the facade was covered in scaffolding. Renovations, whatever that means. And Darlene continues, was he kidding? Whatever that means? The douchebag will, yeah. I'm totally, that vapid base whose stupidity I'm totally done with. What was Trump? What, was Trump trying to imply the fire was set? That it was arson? When even the French were not prepared to go that far? But of course. Mais oui. Mais d'accord.
Well, of course. I mean, and his little shrunken green pea-sized brain, what's left of it, you mark my words, Bob, in the next 24 hours, one of these numbskulls is going to theorize that some of the contractors on the renovation job at Notre Dame were operatives of a Muslim, radical Muslim terrorist group of some sort, and they were somehow responsible because they weren't doing their work in the prescribed way. They were up to no good. They were making mischief. I half expected, what's his name, the papist, the Donahoe, to go that way. Why did he get cut off? He was talking about diarrhea, or what got him bounced?
Oh no, it was no, it was. We've seen crosses smeared with excrement.
Oh yeah, okay.
He had his at that point in time. He had his hand down his pants.
Jesus. I just got a chill thinking about that guy, which is why I try, as I might, not to think of him, because he's everything that's horrid in this world. He's not a. What is that?
There is no redeeming value to anything about him. Let's put it that way. If Donald Trump were a lawsuit over obscenity, he would be that portion of the lawsuit where Potter Stewart famously said, "I don't know what it is, but I can tell you when I see it." There is no redeeming value of any artistic, political, or social value whatsoever.
Yeah. God knows that's right.
I mean, he's not even any good at, because of the harm he does, there's no merit even in making the argument that, well, at least he reminds us what a real president should be like. Now, we'll just let a real president do that.
Yeah, I don't know. Historians will have their hands full to describe the 21st century thus far, the second decade. Well, let's say the 21st century thus far, from the events of 9/11 to the war ongoing in Afghanistan and the bullshit war in Iraq and Bush-Cheney, Cheney-Bush, and that, usual gang of idiots, to quote the Mad Magazine masthead. And then you have poor Obama trying his best, and the obstructionist Mitch McConnell, And we go from a doofus in the form of W to someone who is even, I was going to say reasonably well educated. I would say if you're teaching law and you've made the damn law review, if you're teaching constitutional law, you are more than reasonably well educated. I mean, at the college level, at what, Harvard? You kidding me?
Yeah.
So we go from a doofus to a rather bright, young, charismatic man in the form of Barack Obama. And now I hesitate to say that we're in doofus territory again.
You hesitate? Why do you hesitate? It's a fact.
Dim leader was a doofus. Trump is beyond doofus.
Yeah, Trump is the platonic ideal of stupidity. Trump is idiot. Okay.
There you go. Aye, aye, aye.
I mean, there's the world of forms, and then there's the platonic ideal, and just Trump, stupid.
Well, that's why I use the term irretrievably stupid, because if something is
irretrievably stupid, irrémédiablement. Wow, I did that without even thinking.
That sounded good too.
Lafayette, we are here. Irretrievably stupid.
You must be from the south of France.
I are. It's that saying, ignorance is nothing to be ashamed of, because it merely means that you have not been exposed to certain information. In other words, you can remedy ignorance. But as the old bumper sticker saying has it, you can't fix stupid.
Yeah.
And so when you say irretrievably stupid, what you're saying is, no, he's just stupid because it can't be fixed. He was stupid. It's kind of like a religious vision of stupidity. Stupid yesterday, stupid today, and stupid tomorrow, ad infinitum, worlds without end, here endeth the lesson.
Hopelessly stupid. But when I think of irretrievable, I'm thinking of, in legend, there is like a bottomless pool or a bottomless hole that once something is dropped down it's almost like a black hole in the sense that you never see it again, and there's not rope long enough or a pole long enough to poke around down there and get back what you dropped. That's what I think of, like too far gone stupid, like Dobie Gillis's friend Maynard G. Krebs, way out there stupid, as Maynard would say. Maynard was a bright character, actually. But man, I'm all over the place with references today, Bob. Stop me before I free associate again, please.
Oh no, you're a Renaissance man on a roll.
Oh, has that got onions on top or bits or anything like that? Because I don't like that get stuck in my teeth. Well, I just hate for a thing like's happening today in Paris. That's something you don't ever want to see. You know me, I'm not a fan of religion or religious organizations, or, I kind of cringed when you were talking about the artifacts and the holy bits and the rush. The first thing they went to save were those. But, there's also priceless artwork. There's got to be. I've never been there, but most places of that type have 800, 600, 400-year-old artwork that's irreplaceable. And my feeling of that, I can appreciate the beauty of the artwork, but I tend toward Lenny Bruce's argument about the Puerto Rican family driving through shitty neighborhoods, and go to attend church at this massive jewel-encrusted gold-gilded cathedral, and he was upset by that at the sheer audacity of it. But his thought was, well, they live in a shithole. You know, why should they go pray in a shithole? But I differ from Lenny Bruce in the sense that if you're in the business, so-called, of salvation and ministering to people's needs, whether they be physical or spiritual, what do you got to have art and guilt and not guilt like guilty, but guilt like gilt-edged? I mean...
Yeah, G-I-L-T.
Yeah. I mean, some of those chalices in some of these places could feed and house a family of 4 for the better part of a year or two. You know, and you think of all the damn manuscripts and different rarities in the basement vaults of the Vatican. And meanwhile, there are people, you know, they're bitching and moaning. And I shouldn't use bitching. They're moaning and complaining and whining about paying legal settlements to the children or the families of the children if they've killed themselves for sexual abuse by priests and nuns. And they've got, you know, treasure upon treasure deep in the bowels of the damn Vatican. And like I say, I can appreciate the beauty of the art, but what is an organization of that type, as they describe themselves, doing with such tremendous wealth? And their response is, oh, but you don't know. We must have resources to minister to the flock. Well, flock you, Father Flotsky. Screw you and your horse. I don't need it. I don't want it. I won't have it. That's why I left that organization. I'm just frustrated today. And
well, as someone who is fascinated with what little medieval history I've been able to read, anytime you get into the history of the church, you get into really complicated waters. A swamp, in fact. Because at the same time that you have the abuses that lead to the Reformation, there's an argument to be made that the Reformation was a disaster for Europe. But it was a self-inflicted wound on the part of the church. But for all of that, you also have, for the Inquisition, and you also have its position as something resembling a cohesive force that held a shattered culture together, because the church steps in and essentially puts on the mantle of the Roman state all the terms that the church uses for its organizational structure, dioceses and so forth. Those are Roman governmental structures. They're not church. The church didn't invent them. They stepped in and filled a vacuum. Just like the vestments of the Roman Catholic Church are a hybridization of
the armor.
No, of appropriated traditions from both Judaism and pagan Rome.
Yeah.
The Pontifex Maximus, well, that was the chief high priest of ancient pagan Rome. And interestingly, a pontifex is a bridge builder. That's what a pontifex literally is, a maker of bridges.
Is that where we get pontoon from, like a pontoon bridge?
Well, from the same Latin root, yeah.
Yeah.
But a pontifex is a bridge builder, so he was deemed to be the bridge in ancient Rome. He was deemed to be the person who built the bridge between the gods and the Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Pontifex Maximus in Roman Catholicism is the person who builds the bridge between suffering humanity and the saving grace of Christ Jesus. Now, I'm not endorsing any of this. I'm just explaining where it comes from.
Well, are you talking about the Pope, Pontiff?
Well, in that case, yes.
Oh, okay.
But all of these structures are, there's nothing original to it. The hats, the robes, everything comes from somewhere else. It's just like where Notre Dame stands. It's on the ruins of an ancient Roman temple, and that's the case in so many instances. There is a Roman Catholic Church in Mexico that is literally built atop a pyramid that was there 1,000 years or more before the Spanish arrived.
Yeah.
And they thought that the Cathedral of Mexico actually sat atop the ruins of the Templo Mayor, but thanks to earthquakes and the fact that Mexico City sits on ground that is literally like really thick pudding because it's a lake bed.
Yeah.
We now know that no, they were off the mark a little bit, and so the core of that is still in existence and has been partially excavated. Meanwhile, a bit of a critique has come in via Flavio. Hour and a half into the program and nothing, ... Well, I believe you me, I know that, with a fundraising goal of $250 and us at zero. No, that's not what he's writing about. An hour and a half into the program and nothing. Still no mention of Victor Hugo. Hugo thinks of Notre Dame as a work of art authored by humanity itself, with no individual artist. It surpasses anything an individual can do and therefore becomes the best of what all of us can do. Flavio continues.
All right.
And so if Notre Dame is irrevocably damaged, it might be a good time to turn to one of the greatest celebrations of what the cathedral represents, which appears in Victor Hugo's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. This description appears in the opening of Book 3 of the novel, just after we meet Quasimodo and the Hunchback and Esmeralda, the dancing girl, and it's an evocation of what makes Notre Dame great. Great edifices, like great mountains, are the work of centuries. Art often undergoes a transformation while they are pending, pendent opera interrupta. They proceed quietly in accordance with the transformed art. The new art takes the monument where it finds it, incrusts itself there, assimilates it to itself, develops it according to its fancy, and finishes it if it can. The thing is accomplished without trouble, without effort, without reaction, following a natural and tranquil law. It is a graft which shoots up, a sap which circulates, a vegetation which starts forth anew. Certainly there is a matter here for many large volumes, and often the universal history of humanity in the successive engrafting of many arts at many levels upon the same monument. The man, the artist, the individual is effaced in these great masses, which lack the name of their author. Human intelligence is there summed up and totalized. Time is the architect, the nation is the builder. All these shades, all these differences do not affect the surfaces of edifices only. It is art which has changed its skin. The very constitution of the Christian church is not attacked by it. There's always the same internal woodwork, the same logical arrangement of parts. The service of religion once assured and provided for, architecture does what she pleases. Statues, stained glass, rose windows, arabesques, denticulations, capitals, bas-reliefs. She combines all these imaginings according to the arrangement which best suits her. Hence the prodigious exterior variety of these edifices at whose foundation dwells so much order and unity. The trunk of a tree is immovable. The foliage is capricious. Hugo thinks of Notre Dame as a work of art authored by humanity itself. It surpasses anything an individual can do and therefore becomes the best of what all of us can do. But Hunchback isn't just a celebration of what makes Notre Dame great. It's a reminder that Notre Dame has been rebuilt before, and it can be again. So how about that?
That's pretty damn impressive.
And you know what I find interesting? There's a mention there at the beginning of that quote Great edifices like great mountains are the work of centuries. Well, in the in the mythology and the cultural milieu of the people of this side of the planet, before they had their cultures destroyed by European invaders, we know that we know that temples, pyramids, for instance, in Mayan country, were man-made sacred mountains. They considered them that way. And in a place, and they were also entrance points to the underworld, the afterlife. The Popol Vuh describes the journey of the hero twins through the underworld. And it starts at a sacred mountain. Isn't it interesting that we have sacred mountains, but not so many sacred swamps or sacred deserts? I mean, I guess there are, but it's always the stuff that it's all, and that's the common theme. The purpose of a Gothic cathedral was to lift your eyes heavenward.
Yeah. Well, read that thing.
And so too with mountains. They take us up.
That first part that you read and then you reread it about the mountains and the cathedrals, read that little part again, because something came to me when you said it.
Great edifices like great mountains are the work of centuries.
Okay, you know where my mind went?
Where?
When you read that the second time? To the work that you have been doing and your cohorts have been doing with this mountaintop removal. You know, if mountains are nature's cathedrals, so to speak, or monuments of a holy type, so to speak, the people who are blowing them to bits, literal bits, in order to get what's inside,
are grave robbers.
Well, in a sense, but they're not only missing the importance of the majesty of a mountain, because people can't build those. I mean, yeah, you've got Disneyland and fucking Magic Mountain or whatever that thing is, but that ain't a real deal. If you go inside of it, you see the mechanics of it, and I know it's not paper mache, but it's not too many steps removed from that temporary media or medium. Okay, a mountain is a natural phenomenon and should be treated with some goddamn respect, don't you think?
You would.
Not only do they not respect it, but in order to get to the chewy chocolate center, aka coal, because they got that sweet tooth going on, that energy sweet tooth, the most economical way for them, and the quickest and dirtiest way, quick and dirty in the sense of a tried and true method that's quick and maybe a little dirty. It is in fact quick, and it is in fact horrendously dirty. So not only are they not paying any goddamn attention to the majesty of the mountain, but focused on what's inside of it, they are taking quick and dirty shortcuts to get to it, which not only wrecks the damn mountain, but the fallout of it, and it is literal fallout, fucks up people from miles and miles around. There's no excuse. Now, there are a lot of reasons, but there's no damned excuse. And may I squeeze in a quick TV viewing tip while we're on the subject?
Jump right in.
Of disasters. The other night on PBS, let me make sure I've got the correct name of it. It was a 1-hour documentary about something that I had frankly forgotten about. Bear with me. Okay, it's called Ozone Hole, How We Saved the Planet. If you Google ozone, oh shit, got my nose fixed, now my mouth don't work. If you Google ozone, how we fixed the planet, you will get a link from PBS to watch this documentary. I think it runs 55 minutes in total. About in the 1970s, they discovered that there was an ever-enlarging hole over the Antarctic in the ozone layer, way up above us all, that was growing by leaps and bounds. And they hypothesized that instances of skin cancer would increase because the ozone has a protective property, okay? And they were trying to figure out what was causing it. And it was the CFCs, the
chlorofluorocarbons.
Yeah. And but they couldn't figure out why it was only happening down over the Antarctic. Well, then they figured that out, and then they figured that their assumptions were that it would eat up about 5% of the ozone layer in 100 years, when come to find out, in a much briefer span of time, it had eaten up 35% of the ozone layer, okay? Hence the ozone hole. And I won't give away the ending here, but of all people, Ronald Wilson Reagan and
Old 666 himself.
Old 666 and his lady friend Maggie Thatcher headed up the efforts on a worldwide scale to ban the creation, manufacture, and use of the CFCs. Okay, and it's a magnificent story that the world literally came together when presented with a problem and said, we will not stand for this, and then set about to remedy it. Now, there's a downside with the replacement to the CFCs, but I'll let you watch the movie to find that out. And that has ramifications today and in as many future todays as you can possibly count or name. But I'll let you watch it. It's called Ozone Hole, How We Saved the Planet. And I recorded it the other night, last week, I guess, middle of the week, and didn't get around to watching it until last night. And I'm telling you, I was mightily impressed. I was astonished, first of all, that Reagan and Thatcher, two politicians who are not known for wanting to limit industry and their practices and abuses, had anything to do with saving the planet. That was a mindfuck. That was a total mindfuck. So look that up on your browser there and watch that and see if I'm not correct.
Well, I will indeed. That sounds good.
But anyway, I guess I've beaten many horses near to death at this point, and we could probably go on because we've gone on before. But it makes me sad, Bob. I don't like religion, but I can appreciate the majesty and the work, the human work years, generations.
And see, that's what I mean, and it's just a funny way that my head works. When I'm down south in a place like Selma or several other places in Alabama where there are antebellum mansions, I don't look at them and swoon and say, oh my, isn't that just lovely? I look at that and I hear the voices of the people who built them. Because like that, but the voices of people whose labor was stolen from them, whose lives were stolen from them. And when I'm in D.C. and I see the Capitol and the White House, it's the same thing. it's a matter of trying to see the ordinary lives involved, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
To step back from the tendency we all have to engage in what is called great manism, the great man of history theory, where history is understood as being actions by a succession of great men.
Well, I don't believe that.
Well, I mean, that's how history largely has been written in the West for hundreds of years, if not thousands. 2,500 years worth of Western history if you go back to, Herodotus and Thucydides and those folks. But when I see something like Notre Dame or Chartres or any of the other great cathedrals, yeah, there's a religious overtone, and those were religious people who built them. But they were also manifestations of community and manifestations of human will. Because you know what? No matter how many silly myths are propagated, ain't no angels flew those stones into place.
Hell no.
There was sweat and brutally hard work, genius craftsmanship, with the most, in some instances, rudimentary of tools. That's at base level. That's why I get so pissed off when I see, for instance, these things that show up on TV saying that ancient aliens built the pyramids. Fuck you. That was human beings. That was the work of human beings.
Yeah.
That was the work of human beings who badly wanted something and wanted it badly enough to figure out how to do it. Stonehenge. You have Stonehenge because you need some way of telling when the weather's getting better, when it's time to plant your stuff.
Well, the monuments on Easter Island, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and we don't even really understand why those were built.
Yeah, but there was a thing on TV that I also watched last week. It was a rerun, also on PBS, where they finally think they finally figured out the method that they used to transport these 80-some ton hunks of stone.
Yeah.
Great distances. And here's the weird thing.
Oh, the stones at Stonehenge came from Wales, man.
No, I'm talking about Easter Island.
No, I know. But I mean, Wales.
Yeah, Wales, yes. And there were no
and the Druids
semi-trucks.
didn't fly them in any more than the angels flew the rocks up onto the... No.
But the Easter Island statues, monuments, the native lore for generation upon generation said that the statues walked to their present location. And it turns out, in a sense, they did. Because they basically attached ropes to them and carved them in such a way and worked together with teamwork. And there was some trial and error because the pathway, the roadway, such as it is littered from place to place with fallen monuments of various sizes and shapes. Okay? But they literally, 2 or 3 ropes, gang of people on one end, gang of people on the other end of the thing, up around the top, they're attached, and they basically rocked the damn things back and forth, and the bottom of the thing was carved in such a way that action, left and right, would cause it to rock, like waddle, if you will. So the Easter Island figures did, in a way, walk to their present location. And this was how many years ago when these things were put up?
Oh, yeah.
But I get what you're saying. The dedication, if you strip away all the theological stuff, whether it be the pyramids or the Easter Island structures or Stonehenge or anything else, cathedrals, if you strip away the cosmic sense of it and just look at the dedication of, because a lot of these works were voluntary. I don't believe there was slavery involved, with the exception possibly of the pyramids.
No, there was no slavery involved in the pyramids either. I was about to go exactly there. That is one of the great libels of ancient history.
Mm-hmm.
The people who built the pyramids were skilled workers who were well paid and lived in a city that was built around the sites around the construction sites. There was no slave labor in the pyramids. That is a libel that is concocted inside the confines of the book of Genesis and Exodus.
Yeah.
There's no evidence that the Hebrews were ever even slaves in Egypt. Not one, not a piece, not a bit. Not so much as a sandal thong or a nail or nothing. There is zero evidence.
We need to fly some memos down to the rewrite department.
Well, the Egyptians were meticulous record keepers, and there's no mention of them when there would almost have to be. So these things are works of human desire.
Yeah.
And the thing that scares me most is that, and Monique alluded to this a little bit ago, somewhere along the way, someone's going to try to capitalize on this. You heard crazy old Bill Donahue trying to do exactly that.
Yeah.
In no time flat, I'm sure Alex Jones, or one of those horses' asses.
I'm sure Jim Baker will
be trying to declare that it's a false flag, that it wasn't really an accident. It'll be 9/11 truth all fucking over again.
Oh, God, I don't want to go there.
Wood doesn't burn in a fire like that. I can hear it now. God damn.
I don't want to go there. These people are so stupid. To quote a scripture, and I forget the reference, the truth is not in them, Bob.
No. Not even.
I don't think you've talked, because it's only been a recent development, about Netanyahu getting re-upped for his fifth term.
Yeah.
It made me, when I read that, it made me think of old Hal Lindsey, who I think is still upright and above ground. I don't watch those religious channels no more. But you remember the late, great Planet Earth?
Oh, God, yes, Hal Lindsey.
And you remember Gog and Magog?
Oh, how could I not?
And the invaders from the north of Israel, which could be Iran, or it could be
the kings of
Russia.
The East.
Could be Russia, And I
Gog
I
and
wonder,
Magog were Russia and Moscow.
Well, okay, there you go. And how is Trump going to piss off Putin because he's such good buds supposedly with Bibi? I mean, he was on the fucking campaign ads in Israel for Netanyahu. And if in biblical prophecy, for what it's worth, the beginning of the end is sourced in the actions of those in Gog and Magog, headed south more or less. I don't know. I thought of that, and part of me wants to think that it's all nonsense. But human beings are just crazy enough when they get that religion virus inside of their heads. They want to they want to fulfill their notions, their holy notions. And in today's thermonuclear world, and today's germ warfare world, and today's weapons we probably don't even know about world, some serious shit can come down, Bob. This is no newsflash, of course. And it seems the world's going just as crazy as it can possibly go.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Lee in New York says, no slaves in Egypt? Next, you'll probably try to tell me there are no broken God-written tablets at the foot of Mount Sinai. Oops. Sorry.
Well, they're going to have to rewrite the old spiritual, let my people go. Doesn't that?
Well, no, those were real slaves.
No, but weren't they inspired by the plight of the Israelites?
Oh, sure.
Enslaved in Egypt?
Yes.
What was the cost?
Yeah, but myth can do that.
Yeah. I was going to say, you got to figure the Jews were not involved with the building of the pyramids. I remember reading some time ago what the cost in today's dollars was for the pyramids to be able to. If the Jews had been part of the building project, they would have been done wholesale. The building material and because the mortal sin of Jews is to buy retail. Okay? And I say that kiddingly, but these are an economy-minded people, just like the Scots are economy-minded people, by and large. So, well, have I stepped in it? I guess I should go on that in that crazy note. I don't know, Bob. Sometimes my attempts at levity just go right down the tube. I'm surprised.
There's no crowd beyond the footlights here, so I never know when they work and when they don't.
I'm surprised that Trump didn't say something along the lines of, and Quasimodo believed in hunches. But I'll give him time. He probably will.
The funny thing is, when I saw that when the news first broke, and although I didn't mention Victor Hugo, my first thought was poor Quasimodo.
Yeah.
And then someone along the way said, I sure hope Steve Bannon was working his day job up in the bell tower.
Yes, he does look like that sort.
Sanctuary.
He doesn't have that big dowager's hump, as it were, but
what hump?
He's got the face of Quasimodo. That's for damn sure.
Or as John Prine once remarked in Jesus the Missing Years, exactly Odo, Quasimodo.
And there you go.
Yeah. All right, Scott, have yourself a good night, man.
Take care. Happy Monday to you.
Later. You too. Bye.
See ya.
Meanwhile, under the subject line, let's put on a show, Robert in Australia writes, basically all the ceremonies and artwork and all the rest you find inside a Catholic church was done to bring in the crowds and thus the money. Music, singing, stained glass windows, incense. It was the greatest show on earth if you were just an ordinary 12th century person. P.S. Just had a look at some of the photos inside Notre Dame. Very sad to know it's gone. P.P.S. I'm so tired of living in interesting times. Yeah, I know the feeling. And the other part of a cathedral was also it was a living document. It was a way of teaching the stories and the dogma to people who could not read, but could understand, because in many instances there's a cultural milieu inside a cathedral that we of which we are now illiterate mostly, because we didn't have the cultural we weren't immersed in the culture they were. And it was the greatest show on earth. And well, I can be a little bit irreverent here, I think. I wonder if they'll find any crackers in there with the face of Mary toasted into it. Notre Dame, Our Lady, Notre Dame de Paris, Our Lady of Paris. Yep, Mary. Ron and Raleigh, have you noticed that none of the gospel sharps call Donald Trump the Antichrist? Sure fits the description, though, doesn't he? Oh, he does. He does indeed. We're past the second hour of the program. We were trying to raise $250 tonight. We're still at zero. And remember, there is a matching challenge for new subscribers via Tony in Chico. Up to $50, Tony will match the first month's subscription for 5 people at $10 a month, or 2 people at $25, or up to $50. He will double your subscription. So thank you, Tony, and hopefully people will take you up on it. Subject line: retail, RETAIL /re-tale, retail. Hi, Bob. Jews do believe in retail. We retail the tales every year. Tell Scott to tell the tale and retail it. Yes. Let's. I hate to keep people waiting. Let's run over to the stress line. Hey, welcome to the program.
Hey, Bob. It's me, Reggie, from Decatur again.
What's happening, Reggie?
Nothing much, Bob. So how do you feel about these threats that Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Omar getting? Because, Nancy Pelosi had to have extra security for Representative Omar because of these tweeted threats that she's been getting on the internet. Facebook, Twitter, all these hateful tweets she's been getting because of that 9/11 commercial or ad.
It's just a sleazy, bigoted video that Trump retweeted.
Yeah, but she's getting tweets,
and she's getting threats on her life, and it's despicable. And here's another word: it's deplorable.
Yeah. Well, don't forget who else is being. Go ahead.
But this is par for the course for the maggots. This is what happens when your base is comprised of Klansmen and Klan sympathizers and neo-Nazis and skinheads and 3%ers and identity Evropa and people who live and breathe the filth that flows out of that sewer that's named after 2 words that rhyme with light and fart. This is par for the course for them. What do I think of it? I think it's awful.
Yeah.
I think it's a pathetic indictment of where our society presently stands, that 1/3 of the electorate can terrorize the other 2/3.
Yeah, and nobody's doing anything about it except getting added security. I wish AOC, I wish Alex Cortez herself will also have added security, because she's been threatened too.
Well, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Let's be clear here about what's at work.
What is exactly
the only way this happens is if you have a president who believes he's above the law.
Right, which he
if
does.
you threaten, if you, Reggie, were to pick up the phone and were to call a congressional office and threaten the life of a member of Congress, you would be arrested in a matter of days, if not hours.
I'd be in prison or underneath the prison. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's also illegal for you, for me, for any American. And I'm not doing this. I'm saying what it is illegal to do. It is illegal to threaten the life of the President of the United States, or to say that something horrible should be done to him.
Yes, even though you disagree with or you like him. Yes.
Right. So let's step back for a minute and walk through the analysis.
Yeah.
It is illegal to threaten a sitting member of Congress, but Donald Trump has done exactly that. But there are members of the Supreme Court of the United States who do not believe that he is subject to the criminal laws of the country, that he is literally above the law, and this is one manifestation of that, Reggie.
Yeah.
If a Democratic president had threatened the life of, say, let's go back to the Clinton era. Let's say that Bill Clinton threatened the life of Newt Gingrich.
Yes.
They would have impeached him immediately. And there would have been and back that far, a young Brett Kavanaugh would have been churning out memos left and right, hand over fist, hammer and tongs, day and night, declaring that the president is not above the law, and Bill Clinton should be immediately not just impeached, but arrested and charged with that crime.
Yes. or if President Barack
The President
Obama
of the
did
United
that.
States is violating the law of this country in more ways than we can count. One, he is openly threatening the life of a sitting member of Congress. That is illegal for anyone in this country to do, and there's nothing in the statute that says the president can but nobody else.
Right.
Two,
Yes.
he has instructed Border Patrol agents to violate the law. He has, and if any of them violate it, he becomes guilty of the conspiracy to commit that felony. He becomes an accessory before the fact by offering a quid pro quo trade with the head of Border Patrol, saying that if you're arrested, I'll pardon you. That still is predicated on him, on that guy, performing an illegal act, which again implicates the President of the United States in a felony conspiracy. That's two. There are four more related to the payoffs of the porn stars and nude models and Playboy bunnies that he fucked and then paid to hush up. This man is a multiple, at this point in time, he is, not in the future, right fucking now, a conspirator in felonious conspiracies, and he should, at the very least, be charged with those crimes, even if the Supreme Court says, well, you can't try him for him till he's out of office. Groovy. Let's have that discussion. But he is guilty of felonies right damn now.
Yeah. And what if, like you said, but what if, I'll bring it to you more recently, what if former President Barack Obama did the same thing to John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, threatened those two? What would have happened to him?
Same thing with the Bill Clinton. Same thing with the Bill Clinton hypothetical.
Yeah, he'd be arrested.
Well, he would be. I think he would have been charged.
Yes, he would have been charged. But
see, I remember so far back. I remember back when Jesse Helms was still alive and hadn't yet gone on to hell.
Right.
And Bill Clinton was president, and he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, that Bill Clinton better not come down here, because it might not be safe for him."
Yeah. And I wish he was charged with that threat. Making threats to people is illegal, right, Bob, as you just said earlier?
Well, hold on. There are wrinkles, okay?
Go ahead, man.
A member of the House of Representatives or the Senate who speaks on the floor of that body is immune from prosecution and immune from lawsuit for things they say in the course and scope of their duties in session assembled.
Right.
But if that person says something outside or says it, say, on some godforsaken white wing radio program, not so much.
Yeah. But see, these guys are dangerous. I mean, how long would it be before somebody actually gets hurt or killed, murdered or assassinated, if you will, by what these people say off the air, on the internet and everything, and everywhere else in between. Don't you know how many cycles are out there listening and watching the internet and television? You know how many people watch Fox News, Radio 1, as you would put it, and they get their talking points and their, shall we say, ideas from, including the president himself, who gets his ideas and talking points from Fox News Channel, Radio 1, as you would put it, so cleverly put it, Bob. Plenty of them, right? Or enough of them that they would actually go out and do these things, horrific things, deadly, lethal, dangerous things, and don't get captured, apprehended, busted, arrested, charged, or prosecuted for it, or go to prison for it. You know what I mean? Or hell, be on death row for it, Bob. You know what I'm saying, Bob? Exactly.
I do.
I don't want anything to happen to anybody, especially those in power, positions of power, whether it be Representative Omar, Alexandria Cortez, or anybody else. Even Nancy Pelosi or Maxine Waters, I'm sure they've gotten death threats. Don't forget they've gotten bombs in the mail recently, right? This past year.
Well, the and by the way, that guy pled guilty. Not guilty, not guilty by reason of insanity. He pled up straight criminal guilty. He wasn't crazy. He was plenty sane, and what he did sanely, and he did because he was encouraged to do it by the President of the United States.
Well, that's illegal, Bob. That's illegal. This guy was sick from the beginning.
No, he wasn't sick. He was sane.
He was sane. Like you said, he was sane. But he knew exactly what he was thinking and doing before he did it. And it didn't work. Unfortunately for him, it didn't work because they caught him in time. I mean, they caught the explosive packages in time and detonated them, and they caught him now. And I'm sure he's doing plenty of jail time. I hope it's life or something like that.
It'll be a nice long while.
I hope he'll be life imprisonment, man, because, you know, people like this should be taken off the streets. Correct, Bob? Like you said, if we did something like that, we'd be in prison.
Sure.
We'd be in prison ASAP, you know, like yesterday, you know?
Yeah.
But, like yesterday, but nobody seems to want to discuss that, you know, threatening people's lives and whatnot. Like you said, it's, you know, assault is illegal, period, right? Assaulting people is illegal.
Well, threatening elected officials is illegal.
That's true. That is true. That's true. I mean, it's like they can get away with it doing it to us, but we can't do it back to them. And we wouldn't do it back to them because we know how wrong it is and how illegal it is. I guess they hadn't gotten that memo or the message yet. Or they still hadn't gotten the memo or message yet because they're still doing it. Because he's still doing it. You know, but if somebody threatened him or his kids, he'll go ape shit, right? Right, Bob?
Oh, no.
I'm talking about prison.
Oh, yeah, sure.
If somebody, you know, if somebody threatened him or his kids or even his grandkids, he'll go ape shit, and he'll tweet all night, you know, 24/7 as he does now, currently, you know, instead of running the country as he should or as he's supposed to, right? You know, when you saw him put that hand on the Bible, you're supposed to do as that Bible instructs him to do. You know.
Well, no, it's just a manifestation. No, he's not supposed to adopt the teachings of the Bible. There is no religious. There shall be no test for religious. There shall be no religious test for holding office. The Constitution says that. The Bible is merely a representation that he is telling the truth.
Yeah, but he's not, which he's not doing. But he was sworn to uphold the laws of his land, but he's not doing that. And remember, Bob, no one, I repeat, no one's above the law, not even him. I'm sure that says something. I'm sure that's in the Constitution somewhere, right? Or whatever, wherever it is. I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
Right.
But he's not abiding by it. He's not abiding by it. He's not abiding by it.
Nope. Reggie, you have yourself a good night, man.
Yeah, you do too, Bob. And it's windy down here, but I hope it'll be better tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. It got downright cold today. I don't think it got higher than 45 degrees here, but we're up to 75 tomorrow and sunny skies, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Are you getting any gusty winds up there in Virginia?
Yeah, West Virginia, but yeah, we got.
West Virginia.
Yeah, we had it blew a bit yesterday.
Yeah, well, it's still blowing down here in Decatur, Georgia today. You know, I don't know when it's going to end. You know, it may end tomorrow. It may end by the end of this week. I don't know. Or next week. I don't know. At least it's not raining anymore.
Yeah.
Like it was down here yesterday. At least it's not raining anymore. No single cloud in the sky. Not rain, not storm clouds anyway.
Awesome.
You know?
Exactly.
Awesome.
All right, man. You take care.
Right. Yeah, you do too, Bob.
All right. Later.
I'll see you tomorrow, man.
All right. Bye now. Our buddy Reggie calling from Decatur. Lines are open if you want to jump in for some conversation. We got more Morans. I am going to take a quick break, I think. Maybe. Kinda. Sorta. Let's see. Yeah, I need to check on something back in the mansion. Stand by. I'll be right back. So we were talking about morans. I hate it when the computer does this. No, morans. And today's Moran Monday sort of got superseded, as it were, by the moranity that surrounded the fire at Notre Dame. But the day began and the weekend proceeded with a great parade of morans centered on what is expected to be big news of the coming week, namely the release of the redacted Mueller report. I had a note from Lady B a little bit ago. Listening to you and Scott, and it's keeping me going. I have a feeling it's going to be a shit week, and it's making me feel almost dead inside. I'm tired of the threat of something big happening because it doesn't seem like it will be any good and only cause us humans more grief. Anyway, I'm not Catholic and have never been to Paris or Spain for that matter, but I kind of like the music. Ha! Well played, well played. But I'm sure the Notre Dame Cathedral was absolutely breathtaking to view in person. Places like that demand a feeling of reverence, no matter how you feel about it. But could it be that maybe the forces of power, the forces that power us, are tired of our bullshit? Or maybe it's not that mystical. Maybe it was bound to happen, as things always do, and we grieve because we can only see life as it exists in the moment and not how it's been since before us and after. Who knows? All I know is that right now it sucks. We'll recover, I guess. In the meantime, I've got bills to pay and fish with microscopic pieces of plastic in it to eat. Yay, modern times. Carry on. Yours in Cthulhu, Lady B. And there's a cowbell for the yours in Cthulhu part, if nothing else. And there's a whole lot else there. Absolutely. But, yeah, that sense that it's going to be a shit week, it's all over us like a cheap suit. Enter Republican strategist Maddie Duppler. She showed up today on Fox News TV Radio Rwanda to discuss the issue of Trump's taxes. Trump's taxes, which have been lawfully demanded by the House of Representatives, and the statute allowing them to do this being not at all vague and not in the least ambiguous. Well, enter Maddie Duppler, who is apparently not a longtime practitioner, as am I, of the art of word knowing. This might take a minute. Get the hockey puck.
I would assume that President Trump's taxes will be.
Well, Maddie Duppler is the senior fellow at the National Taxpayers Union. How you doing, Maddie? And good morning.
I'm good, Bill. Happy Tax Day.
Happy Tax Day. You beat me to it. Thank you for being here. What do you think we learn in Bernie Sanders? What do we learn about him, do you think?
Well, I think we learn everything we already know, which is that capitalism, the system that Bernie Sanders continues to vilify, has made Bernie Sanders a very rich man. Now, I want to go back to Sarah's comment real quick. We know the real reason that congressional Democrats are pursuing the president's tax returns. It's because the progressive agenda has no hope of making its way through Congress. The Senate, of course, smacked down the Green New Deal. House Democrats can't even get a budget done. This means that progressives and socialists who are running for president, like Bernie Sanders, have very little to show the base as they head into that election season.
Okay.
So that means that the tax returns are what they're pursuing.
That may or may not be correct, but do you think they'll succeed? I think is the fundamental question for the law at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that what they're doing is they're setting up a very long court challenge. So they don't need to succeed. They just need to keep this in the media narrative. It's something that they want to continue to talk about because they think it gets their base excited. I don't think they care whether or not they get the tax returns. They just care if it's part of the media cycle.
Here's
Notice she hasn't addressed the fundamental issue here. Why is the Treasury Secretary conspiring with the head of the IRS to violate a federal statute that says you go to prison if you violate it?
Larry Kudlow, he was out a bit earlier today on Fox. So was Steve Mnuchin, but here's Kudlow from Washington. Watch.
The president not releasing his tax forms today. The thing I want to say is echo the Secretary of the Treasury, my good friend Steve Mnuchin. This administration has no intention to weaponize the IRS the way the Nixon administration did. I'll leave it there and refer you to the Treasury Secretary.
Yes, Steve Mnuchin basically said the same thing a bit earlier. Go ahead, Manny.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good point that Kudlow is making there. Remember that Ways and Means said they want the tax returns because they want to make sure that the audit procedures that the IRS follows are all on the straight and narrow. There are a lot of lawyers at the IRS who can make that determination. There's an inspector general who can make that determination. Giving that information over to a political panel at the Ways and Means would open up a large can of...
And guess what? We got this thing called the Constitution that says the Congress gets to do oversight on all those people this idiot just mentioned. I'm sorry, Moran.
Of worms that we wouldn't necessarily be able to undo.
Okay, well, just so our viewers know, you're seeing Joint Base Andrews there outside of Washington, D.C. President's now arriving with his motorcade. He's going to take off Air Force One bound for Minnesota. We're going to watch that departure. We'll follow that trip throughout the day. He may have some comments here, Maddie, so we'll see whether or not that happens here. Get back to the law here. 1924, I think the law states shall furnish.
Oh, wait a minute. This is the hockey puck part. The law states shall furnish. Okay, are we good with that?
comments here, Maddie, so we'll see whether or not that happens here. Get back to the law here. 1924, I think the law states shall furnish.
Mm-hmm. And shall, of course. Sorry, Bill.
But does that hold up against the challenge? If the law states shall furnish, how can you deny Chairman Neal?
Well, because shall is kind of a tricky word when it comes to legalese, right?
No, Maddie. Shall is not a tricky word when it comes to legalese. Shall is a word that lawyers use when they want to make sure nobody thinks they're using a tricky word. May is tricky. May can mean things. May can mean that decisions are fluid. Shall means there's no fluidity, do it. But that's where these maggots are now. Well, shall's a kind of a tricky word there, Bill. Do tell. Tricky.
Tricksy Democrats.
Mm-hmm. With their shall words. Ferg does it much better. Gollum than I do. Jesus. The stupid is strong with these ones. Shall's a tricky word. Mm-hmm. Maddie Duppler, who apparently has a wingnut welfare job, because I can't imagine her being hireable in any other circumstance. Shall. Tricky word. Sure. You betcha. Some days. But like I said, lots and lots of morans. Hey, let's check in with the anti-vaxxers. Yeah. There's a risk now, it was cited today on MSNBC by Dr. John Torres, the MSNBC's medical reporter. He said the measles outbreak is pretty scary. It's spreading across the country and it's spreading across the world. The World Health Organization just came out saying there's 112,000 cases so far this year of measles around the world. 555 of those are in the United States just in the first 4 months of the year. Only 19 years after the United States declared that measles was eliminated. Not eradicated, but not endemic, and not entrenched in the United States. 19 years later, thanks to the anti-vaxxers, it's back. And our herd immunity is diminishing. Dr. Torres noted on MSNBC, get vaccinated. There's no harm in the vaccine. It's rare to get any problems from the vaccine. It's not rare to get problems from measles. And, of course, we have a religious community to thank for some of this. A couple of them, the Amish, for instance, are having an outbreak in, I believe, Ohio, because they don't believe in medical science. And then there's an ultra-Orthodox Jewish community in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And they're helping with the spread. And then there's just the anti-vaxxers, who often have bizarre religious beliefs to go along with it. And by the way, even if you think you're immune, you might want to quit telling us how, right. You might want to talk to your medical professional if you've got insurance and you can go to the doctor. and ask them if, in fact, you're immune. Because for people who had their vaccines up to like 1985 or so, between 1960 and 1985, you may not be immune. And it's a hell of a way to find out you're not immune to measles by getting the measles. So despite the weirdos and the idiots and the anti-vaxxers and the do yourself a favor. If you've got access to medical care, please ask and make sure whether you're immune. Because these fuckers are trying to cause a pandemic. And they may be on the way to succeeding. Oh, and hey, by the way, who helped fuel the anti-vaxxer cause? Yeah. You know. Lovable, huggable, cuddly. Right. So it's 20 minutes before the hour. We got a little bit of time left in the program. We were trying to raise $250 tonight. We're still at zero. Oh, well. Let's go back and let's go over and check in with Todd. Hey, Todd.
Alex Jones. God damn it. I don't believe in vaccinations, motherfucker.
That's right.
No, look, I'm going to tell you something. It's so funny. It's not funny. I remember the last time I was in Williamsburg. Brooklyn Brewery has a brew pub there, right on, it's right there, right there in Williamsburg. Well, Brooklyn Brewery, they make really good beer. The Banner, I think it's Pennant Pilsner is pretty, beer. They don't make bad beer, period. That's not the point. The point is, around 3 o'clock, it looks, it's a nice little neighborhood. And it's funny because the Jamaicans, I was with one of my Jamaican friends, and we're at his grandmother's apartment, house, whatever, you call your apartment a house. And so we're back in the car around 3 o'clock. Man, all you see is a flood of people. I mean, tight, because it's a very religious area. A lot of Hasidic Jews right there. And people don't, I don't know, man. This shit is about to jump off. New York, it's tight. People is tight. And everybody takes the subway, man. This is dangerous shit.
Yeah, it is.
It's dangerous.
Well, remember that I think back to the assholes who were tried and convicted up in Canada. I think they were convicted. Their little baby got sick, and they tried to treat it with maple syrup. The baby died.
Mm-hmm.
Maple syrup, Todd.
Well, it's funny how this anti-vaxxer, it's complicated. It's complicated only because there were bad vaccines at one point. But that got all blown out of proportion. People didn't understand what they were reading. They didn't understand how to process knowledge. And a lot of this stuff happened in the halcyon days of the internet. It was like, information. Folks weren't paying attention to the URLs and who's putting this information out. Where's it coming from? And, and guess what? That shit, we all love YouTube. YouTube has some useful things on it. However, I don't know if you've noticed, there's some fucked up shit on YouTube. If you don't know your facts, there's some glossy videos that masquerade as documentaries and history and this and that. It's totally false. Totally.
Yeah.
And this feeds into what you're talking about. So what do you think is the remedy to this?
Yeah, well, I think New York got a good start on it by saying it's mandatory. Fuck you. Get your fucking vaccination. We tried to be nice about it. Now we're telling you have to. If you want to howl about your goddamn religious liberty all the way to the doctor's office, You do that, but get the fucking shot. And I'll go a step further. I don't think it would be a big legal leap to say that a parent who does not vaccinate their children is engaging in active neglect and or abuse of those children. Boom, out of the house.
Well, look, you remember when we were growing up, everybody knew, like, you had a certain vaccination because there was a big welt on one, I guess it was the left arm, usually left, like,
yeah, see, I didn't get that
arm.
one. That was smallpox.
That was right. So you know the scar I'm talking. That's not. Yeah. You know
when the other kids were getting theirs, I was too sick to be able to get it, and then I never got it.
Really?
Yeah, I have no smallpox immunity, and it's not like my parents were anti-vaxxers, but I was really sick as a little kid.
Okay, you were too fragile to get it because you had to have.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I mean, it's just Okay. Wow. See,
my dad's smallpox vaccine was on his upper arm. My mother's was on her leg, and it was huge. Apparently, they wallered that needle around a little bit in her. But she was sickly as a kid too.
Whoa! Wait a minute! You don't waller needles around, man. Come on. That's terrible.
Dude, you have no idea. When my mom was little and had her tonsils out, you know that little thing that hangs down the back of your throat, your uvula?
Right.
Yeah, they got that too.
Oh my God, these people are troglodytes. They just went in there and said, take it all out. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Your tonsils are on either side. That's not even part of it. Well,
she didn't get. They got it.
They just took everything out. Said, fuck it. As lucky as she can talk. Oh, my God.
Yeah, Darlene with a good question. How do the authorities police that, though? How do they enforce vaccinations? Well, you kind of, I'm guessing you enforce it on the back end because when you go to enroll your kid in school, the kid doesn't get to go to school without proof of vaccination. And at this point in time, the ordinance or whatever in New York would, I presume, say that a note signed by Epstein's rabbi is not going to cut the mustard.
No, right.
Remember, Welcome Back, Cotter, exactly. The excuse is signed by Epstein's mom?
Right, I do. And that's exactly what has to, like you said, from the back end. So what happens is that you start, your kids can't, there is no school. You're not allowed to go to school unless you can prove that public school, parochial or private, or, a religious, other type of religious schools. So then you say, okay, you, not only the pupil, but the household, because you have the address, and you already have how many people are supposed to be living in that household. Because remember, when that child goes to school, and I'm going to tell you something, that's the public schools are the nastiest. Oh, my God. Public schools.
Oh, Agnes, back when our kids were little, we'd send them to school, and Agnes and I would get sick a couple of times a year just from something disgusting that had been brought home from school. Because, Agnes would not send our kids to school if they were sick. She said, I am not going to make other kids sick because ours have caught a bug.
Right.
But other parents are like, get on the fucking bus, kid. I don't want to stay home and take care of you.
Well, you know what, especially young ladies now, like the sophisticated young ladies that go to public school in a decent place, you come prepared with your hand sanitizer. And I say young ladies because, females have different health needs than males.
Well, and purses. Not a lot of guys carrying around hand sanitizers in their jeans pockets, but every woman in this household has a little bottle of hand sanitizer in her purse.
Well, I mean, it's the thing to do, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Hey,
I got to break in on this conversation because I'm not getting rid of. A different story because something just landed in my inbox and I got to share this.
Go ahead.
I didn't even put on the tattered purple robe with the frayed appliqued moon and stars and and glow in the dark paint with "Will Thee Kiss Me in the Dark, Baby," and the with the 8-ball and the magic and the broken window and the answer Hazy asked again later. I didn't do any of that shit. I just said it, and here it is. For immediate release, April 15th, 2019. Attacks on French churches constitute a warning. Hamilton Strategies, media at hamiltonstrategies.com. Patrick Benner, phone number, or Deborah Hamilton, extension 102. Attack on French churches constitute a warning. Save the persecuted Christians. Unless we stand up for persecuted Christians, what is happening there will come here. The faithful around the world, Dateline, Washington. The faithful around the world watched in shock and horror as flames from the Notre Dame Cathedral lit up the Paris sky, marking at least the partial destruction of a religious, cultural, and historic global landmark. Save the persecuted Christians, STPC, like they're listed on the fucking stock exchange or something, which advocates on behalf of hundreds of millions of Christians facing heavy persecution worldwide, says the tragedy is the latest in a string of church fires in France, a trend that should alarm believers worldwide. Frank J. Gaffney, president and CEO of Save the Persecuted Christians, issued the following statement in the wake of the destruction.
Gaffney?
Yes. Noted anti-Muslim hate monger Frank Gaffney. The fire that catastrophically consumed Christendom's most beautiful cathedral in the heart of one of its most important capitals is a tragedy not only for Christians, but for the world, Gaffney said. While the cause of this particularly devastating loss remains to be determined, it comes against the backdrop of numerous attacks that have desecrated or destroyed Christian houses of worship across France. The pattern of attacks is a symptom of a Sharia supremacist assault on Christianity in France, often enabled by the country's intolerant secular left. It suggests that the kind of persecution that is now afflicting some 300 million followers of Christ elsewhere around the world is coming full force to Europe as well. These fuckers are trying to start World War III. They want a new crusade, and goddamn them all straight to hell.
That was Bob Cosell Kincaid. Look, that is so aligned with Marie Le Pen.
Yeah.
For her say her name. I mean, I don't doubt it. This is some, and I was really, I'm so glad. I'm not even going to get into it. That is insane. I can't believe that church. And what the fuck was he calling it? The organism calling it a museum. I mean that's pushing it. Why don't he talk about the wonderful flying buttresses like that? There's a lot behind, and that's kind of what you were intimating.
Well, he doesn't talk about the flying buttresses because he doesn't want anybody to find out about the flying buttresses that he paid off. Sorry, had to.
But do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I do. Wait, hold on. Americans are on notice. Unless we counter the forces perpetrating such crimes against humanity. He's already convicted. I mean, this is Hitler saying, "Das ist die Arbeit von Kommunisten" after the Reichstag fire.
Okay. And let me cut in real quick because you didn't correct someone, but the intonation of your voice corrected them. The reason that we may not have another election is because this multi-celled mentally ill organism is in the habit of saying, well, it's a national emergency. And that's going to be his out. He's going to do that shit. Watch. He's going to try. And that way, there will be no election. And he'll stay in office because he knows if he leaves office now, he knows. He's indicted. He's facing charges that he cannot beat or may not be able to. It's a lot. That's a lot. It's a lot of court time. A lot of discovery. Discovery's a motherfucker. And I don't think he wants to endure that. So that's the mechanism that this administration is planning to use. They're in a habit now. Now, you know what? In fact, and then, you know what a national emergency is? Why don't people in parts of Michigan have safe water? Why don't we all have safe water to drink? How about that? Because it's not just Flint And it's not just Bar Harbor. See, they started experimenting with those folks. It's all over. You know, when folks, if one does the research, there's no one. People say, "Well, too much regulation." There's a lot of private small water companies that give people water who live in rural areas. And they may not know it, and they may not know how to read these reports that get sent out. That tells you how much lead and copper, aluminum, things I don't even know are in your water. They may just give you the straight chemical breakdown, but you don't know what is acceptable and what is not. They're not going to give you that part. But maybe I went off on a tangent. But this whole...
Well, and on Frank Gaffney, Steve in New York says, wait a sec, I didn't think Catholics were real Christians in France, especially Paris is for sissies. Well, until they're until they're useful. No, that's the way they hate France, but now j'aime la belle France, right?
I'll be honest with you. And I'm not trying to sound like that guy, but it's hard, man. I was there. I've been in. If anyone has been to Paris, have been, do the tourist thing in Paris and France and whatnot. It's one of those cities that has an energy. D.C. has it, New York has it, Paris has it, but that is some shit. When you first of all, when you're in Montmartre and you look down at Notre Dame, then you go there. You think about all it took to make that thing. That's some fucked up shit. Is this the end of us? What is going on?
You're asking a question that I think a lot of people are asking. It feels apocalyptic, and from my own standpoint, I'll tell you, this is just one of those weird things. I've mentioned how some mornings I wake up and I'm more tired than when I went to bed because I've spent the night just dreaming. I'm not exhausted for the good reasons. I'm exhausted because I've been watching a movie all night long inside my own skull.
Oh, and you say that. I believe you now.
No, just these vivid-ass dreams. And way back when I was an undergrad, riding my dinosaur to college, I had an English professor who had a project he was working on that was, the topic of it was the impact of the nuclear age on the people living in it. And so he collected, and he told all of his classes, if you have a dream that has nuclear war in it, jot it down and give it to me. You don't have to give me your name or anything. But he was just trying to pull together like a database of, because he was into Jungian psychology and the life of the dreamscape and all of that.
That makes all the sense in the world. Yeah.
And I thought of him the other day because I woke up shook. I don't know. I don't know if maybe a mountaintop removal blast had gone off while I was asleep, and I heard the rumble. But in this dream, Agnes and I were up in Morgantown, and we go to Morgantown to go to the doctor. So okay, that explains and we're going again at the end of the month. So that's my subconscious working that out. Okay, no problem. But and I know Morgantown like the back of my hand. So I knew specifically the location we were in, and we were in the car, and I heard this loud boom. And then I heard a second one, and I said, "Oh my God." And in the dream, I bent low so I could look out her side of the car. And I could see off in the distance in a clear blue sky to the east, like toward D.C., a mushroom cloud rising into the atmosphere.
What?
Yeah. This dream just, it's terrifying. And then I saw, I could hear jets scrambling and screaming above. And then I saw a little, Piper Cub painted olive drab green flying in toward the Morgantown, where I know the Morgantown airport is. And I looked at her and I said, that one's for us. We got to go. They've come to get us. I don't know why. I mean, these are just the bizarre workings of one's subconscious. But that moment when I bent my neck down so that I could see out into the greater, and I saw that mushroom cloud rising to the east, it was horrifying. I mean, I woke up shaken.
You had your neck like out of the window, or
No. It was like I was bending down toward the gear shifter so I could get a better up angle looking out the window.
Okay.
You see what? Can you see? Because I'm doing. If we had video here, I got my neck bent and I'm pointing my arm up. So I wanted to see further up into the sky.
Oh.
And so I was looking due east, and Morgantown is roughly due west of D.C. And that's, and I told Agnes about it, and it scared the shit out of me.
Well, so let me ask you this, because this is something that's been percolating around in this area, in my crowd. Time seems to be moving very quickly, but quicker than usual. It always moves fast as you get older, but something, it just comes up. I'm like, oh, I noticed that too. It just comes up in conversation. Have you noticed that?
Well, what did Ferris Bueller say? Life comes at you pretty fast. Was that Ferris Bueller?
I don't know.
But yeah, it's sped up because that's what happens, I think, in situations in which chaos becomes the order of the day. Because when there is no regular order, then things capture your attention from so many different vantage points that it feels like time has sped up.
Well, look, there were a handful of people on Saturday thinking it was Friday. Or, I mean, the reverse. Like, Friday felt like Saturday, and Saturday felt like Sunday. That's what I mean. And there were numerous people who, unprompted, in this area. It's something, I don't know what, I mean, I'm not talking about people who are into, Alex Jones or, he was like NBC, ABC, CBS type people. But what, good God, man, I cannot believe Notre Dame is burnt. I didn't even know about it. I cut off the news because I have enough, it's enough negativity coming in. I don't need it anymore. It's like, I just don't, I don't understand. I don't understand. I mean, the rules are out there. Here's the rule book. And it's just like, well, at least follow the rule book. No, we're not doing that. But this is why we have the rule book for situations like this. And the powers that be are like, no. Which is making me think, Mr. Kincaid, honest to God, the power elite, they must want this mentally ill fascist in charge for some reason. Otherwise, he would not be in there.
I don't think so. I think, remember, Bannon is a serious proponent of chaos theory.
Sure. He said that.
He believes, and he holds out Lenin and Mao and people like that as heroes of his for seizing power in chaos, because he says out of chaos is where you grab the power and you make those massive changes. I mean, Jesus, we've got a man nominated to the Fed who said, really, I'm not much of a fan of democracy when it comes right down to it. These people have told us who they are. Now, some people said, well, let's go ahead and give them power because it'll be good for our wallets.
Mm-hmm. Sure. But what does it cost? At what cost?
Right, and that's and that's the same thing that happened in early 1930s Germany. Paul von Hindenburg said, I will control this Hitler, there's nothing to worry about. And then he's dead. And he ain't controlled.
But see, you're not supposed to bring that person up.
Well, no, I think that law is inapplicable when the actual comparisons are real. Or at least that's my take on it.
Well, they have been, look.
I mean, one of those things on
Pedro,
that, Monique mentioned the thing with Richard Engel interviewing Steve Bannon last night on MSNBC. And dude he's got enough money. He's got enough, who are those awful people that bankrolled him? Mercers. He's got enough Mercer money now. He's bought an old abbey outside Rome and is renovating it to turn it into a monastery for disseminating his hateful fascist ideology generation after generation.
Oh, my God. Damn.
Yeah, I'm just surprised. I'm just surprised he didn't try to do it in Spain there where they buried Franco. Because that's one big creepy fascist monument there.
But see, and this is why I was always leery and wary of having so many people unvetted running and creating confusion. We need to be laser focused on the task at hand. Right now, cold or herd, we need 4 or 5 people, maybe 7, because we have to do VPs total. You know, that can right the ship, or at least take control of the captain's quarters. Because there's something's going on here. This is nonsense, and this is beyond politics. We cannot have a mentally ill fascist in control. That means he's not in control. That means who is in control? That's the question.
And I don't know the answer. Do you? I mean, the only tool we're given is the ballot. And what we know from 2016, even the ballot can't save us in a system that has been compromised.
Okay, one cool question. Do you have, it's an old book now, 2017, The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. Do you have that?
I don't.
There's a copy on the coffee table, and my neighbor had it, or has it, and she told me I should get it, so I got it. No, and it's, I don't know, I didn't pay that much for it at all. But it's a fascinating, and the checkoffs, the whole, and Tony Schwartz is cited in there. I remember I was talking about him one day. I don't know, because he spent every day, that's somebody you want to listen to. He's been around it every day for a year doing that, ghostwriting The Art of the Deal. And he's cited in there. A number of other people are cited in there. But, I just don't understand, what is it going to take for the Senate to stop enabling and enabling this? Like, what did they expect to get out of
and
this?
at what point in time, Todd, does the House finally act? I mean, in the course,
they have to soon.
In the course of my conversation with Reggie, I wasn't being hyperbolic. Mm-hmm. For anyone who wants to, it is abundantly apparent to me that there is an argument to be made that, he's not just abusing our system. He is engaged in a full-on crime spree from the felonies he committed with Cohen to the felonies he committed with the head of Border Patrol to the felonies, you heard it, didn't you?
I heard, listen, well, I heard you guys, on my end, you guys cut off at some point, but I've heard our president, and
he offered a quid pro quo in exchange for the head of Border Patrol committing a felony, and he also suborned felonious conduct on the part of border agents themselves. He did that.
Yeah, I heard that, and I'll pardon you. It's like
even though he has a legal pardon power that's constitutional in nature, if he asks someone to commit a felony on the front end, he's part of a conspiracy to commit the felony. God damn it! And I'm just a guy who had a cup of coffee in law school, but I know that.
No, come on, man. Look, you know the law. You know the law like Lawrence O'Donnell. He knows the law. And if you know his backstory, you know he knows the law. Look, now, okay, put that in that basket right there. So why are lawmakers allowing him to continue with this when this now it's egregious? It's not like even speculative anymore. We started off with the emoluments to say, well, it was never used. You see, once again, now back to my statement, back to my question. Maybe why is the power elite allowing this to happen?
Far too many people, and again, I say, Todd, I don't think they are allowing it as in they're willful about it. There are far too many people, I would say a majority of people in the Congress, who have taken on this sort of, and there's that word we used the other night, sclerotic, stylized approach to the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I am not an originalist like Fat Dead Tony Scalia was an originalist. But what I can say is that thanks to people like Dr. Bill, I have a much better appreciation for the mindset of the people who framed the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And they set up a government, I've said it before, I better say it again now, where they envisioned a legislature with its hands always around the executive's throat. Just kind of sitting there, not squeezing, but just there.
Just to let them know, in case you act up.
You start fucking up and we're going to start squeezing. And that was probably dead as an idea by 1850. When John Adams and Thomas Jefferson lay dying on July the 4th, 1826, they knew the revolution was over. That's why every revolutionary government pushes the idea of preserving the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it begins to morph into an institutional setting and becomes the power instead of the revolution, then that's when you lose it.
It's done.
And so you've got too many people out there who think, oh, God, I was reading something in the last day or so, a guy saying, wow, was I wrong about that? If you go back, you'll find people referring to the constitutional crisis of Watergate.
Mm-hmm.
That was not a constitutional crisis. That was the Constitution working as it was designed to work.
Mm-hmm.
What people fail to understand, Todd, is that a constitutional crisis happens when the Constitution doesn't work. And that's why I say we have been in constitutional crisis since January the 20th, 2017, because all the constitutional mechanisms are failing,
They're
failed.
Exactly. Look, right. So I wish someone would bullet point this in the major media, right? Even the George Bush's ethical folks said, well, as soon as he takes oath, he's in violation of the emoluments clause if he doesn't get rid of that hotel. Am I wrong there?
No, you're not.
Like that.
And he is.
And he is.
And there's a remedy there. And the funny thing is, and again, this goes back to that stylized, sclerotic vision of the way our government works. It's supposed to be kind of slow and plodding, and nothing really big is ever supposed to happen, and time and inertia will take care of most of it. But
something big has
but
really
when a chaos agent comes along, that all goes out the windows. And so the emoluments clause, for instance, contains an out. When the Republicans had the House and the Senate, they could easily have passed a bill, and Trump would have signed it, saying, we hereby give permission to Donald Trump to take all the fucking emoluments he wants. And nobody could have done a goddamn thing about it, because it is right there in the Constitution that is what the Congress can do relative to emoluments. But they were so sure of their power that they didn't. And now the Congress is not going to pass such a bill, and if a court actually takes the emoluments clause seriously, he's going to be in some serious shit. And I suppose there are some people, Todd, who are just waiting for that to wend its way through the courts. But we don't have, that is a luxury we do not have.
Look here, Mr. Kincaid. In the meantime, our institutions have been eviscerated. We have figureheads who are antithetical to their position, which we've all been talking about that for years now. But not only that, they're understaffed, they're not on task. I'm almost speechless, because when I think about it, it's almost like this Amos and Andy episode where they go out to Westchester County in New York, and there's this house. It looks like a house, but it's just like a stripe, like a set, a stripe, like a facade. There's nothing behind it. Looks like a nice house. That's our government now. We have nothing. We have no diplomats. We have very few diplomats. Our State Department's eviscerated, which means that, you just go to war.
And the government and the executive branch is running on acting secretaries, which means they've never been subjected to any sort of a confirmation process. And what they've figured out inside the White House is that that's probably for the best, because it means that nobody can really do anything about them. You can impeach a cabinet secretary. How do you impeach someone? How do you impeach someone who's never been confirmed?
Well, right, but so let's go back to the remedy that you mentioned twice. You mentioned it the second time last week. It was like a work. It was a work. Oh, I don't want to say workaround, because that's a demeaning type of term. But you had a remedy, and it didn't quite require all that this common knowledge. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Could you say it again, please?
Or of
such. This is serious shit, man. This is serious shit.
Or of such body as Congress may by law provide.
Mm-hmm.
And it just either I'm completely off my rocker, or and I don't think I am, or the genius lawyers that fill building after building after building after building in D.C. Aren't even thinking about that, because they never noticed it.
Well,
because the 25th Amendment's not there to actually be used. It's just ceremonial. It's just something we amended into the Constitution after we got to see Jack Kennedy's brains splattered all over Dealey Plaza.
Well, okay. So we have a very animated and agitated and invigorated House now. New people, new blood. They're crazy. They don't know what they're doing, but they know what they want to do. And a stodgy Senate that is slightly fractured. All right? They're slightly fractured. They're ready to fracture a little bit. Some of them. It would seem. So What is it going to take? Because it's on the Senate. The House is there. It's on the Senate.
Well, no. Hold on. I have defended Nancy Pelosi vigorously.
Sure.
I've said that, I don't take issue with her strategy and tactics given the circumstances. But I think we've gotten into a territory where I'm beginning to feel a little uncomfortable. Because if you believe that the president, and this just kind of dawned on me over the weekend, he's actively, with the latest bit about him offering the quid pro quo, he is engaging in serial felonious criminal conduct.
He just doesn't give a damn. He's like,
and if you blink at it, what comes next will be even worse. Because in many ways, Donald Trump is who he is and doing what he is doing to the United States of America because when we had a chance to act on the war crimes of George Bush and Count Dicula, we chose not to. And going back to the Iran-Contra affair and Bill Barr and the pardons for everybody involved in that. But even before that, when Ben Bradley and Katharine Graham at the Post said that, she clutched her pearls and he wrung his hands, and they said America can't stand another constitutional crisis like Watergate. In that moment, those powdered panjandrums created this situation in which we live now, Todd.
Well, flesh out more about Pelosi, please. Because what are you concerned about?
Well, I mean, I understand not pushing impeachment because the way the situation, the stylized way that it has evolved, means you wouldn't even be done with it by January 20th, 2021. But it doesn't have to operate that way because there are no constitutional rules on on how it works, except the vote totals.
That's what I say.
And the procedure. It starts in the House. It starts in the House. A simple majority impeaches, just like a simple majority of a grand jury indicts. Then it has to be tried in the Senate, and you're dealing with the 2/3 numbers. And the fact of the matter is, the man has committed felonies. And either the President of the United States is liable for the commission of felonies in office, or he is not. And if he is not, Todd, there is a president out there in the future who is going to be a nightmare to this country.
That's another constitutional.
We only think. I mean, this is a nightmare. The next one's going to be a night terror. You ever seen a kid in the middle of a night terror? The ones you can't get them to wake up out of.
It's ugly.
Okay, this is a nightmare. What's coming is a night terror. And I sit of
our political structure.
And we sit here on this little radio show talking about these things, while the multimillionaires in the for-profit media ho hum.
This is what they should be talking about, because what you described is exactly what is happening.
And the thing is, what I've laid out here, they wouldn't publish on the op-ed pages of the Washington Post or the New York Times if I paid them unless I paid them for a full-page ad. And all these little geniuses who are working their way through Harvard and Yale Law and University of Michigan Law and Stanford Law and Virginia Law and Duke Law, and nobody's written a fucking law review article about that about the Thomas Riley Marshall Clause or of such other body as Congress may by law provide.
That was it.
Nobody's doing that.
When you mentioned it, you hadn't given it a moniker. Now you have it. Right. I mean, you gave it that moniker the other day. Right. You need to write a white paper on that. Just get it documented and get it out there.
Really white, pink even.
Well, you know.
I know. But there are ways out, but you have to want the way out. You have to go looking for it. And instead, we're having a debate that is framed in terms that the people who should not be trusted with so much as the carcass of a dead skunk have framed. I mean, the idea that well, you know, we're not sure that statute from 1924 is really. I mean, you heard her.
Man.
Shall is a tricky word.
Look. Oh, wait a minute. What? Oh, they brought up. Listen, that's what really made me call. I was like, remember we spent 2 days talking about shall. Honest to God, we did. That's like that is the word.
Shall means there is no choice involved.
There's no choice. That insurance, the law. When you're convicted, you shall serve 18 days.
Shall be
months,
committed to
whatever,
the custody of the Commissioner of the Department of Corrections, in which custody to serve a sentence of not less than 1 or more than 5 years. Yada yada. Shall.
That is the old English way of being like, no, this is it. This is the law. You shall. You're compelled to do so. You shall engage in car insurance. You shall pay
shall carry a policy of liability insurance whose limits shall not be less than $20,000 per person, $40,000 per occurrence, and $10,000 property damage. Shall.
Well, you know something? Honest to God, this is like we're in this slurry of Orwellian, an Orwellian breakdown.
Horseshit.
Of our society. This is just disgusting. But then you have it's not 50-50, but you have this a significant amount of folk. No matter what happens, they're with a certain.
Just give Trump a chance.
Way.
You just let him be president. Let him make America great again. And that's what I meant.
He beat up on that man.
A third of the electorate of this country is being allowed to terrorize 2/3 of the electorate. That ain't democracy.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Now, because someone asked me this and said, well, I alluded to the fact that Israel was being led by their religious, zealot, powerful clique, just like we are. The minorities ruling, and they don't want to give it up. And you can explain it here because it depends on where you live, how much your vote counts, because of the Electoral College and gerrymandering. But maybe is it the same way in Israel? Do the folks who live in the kibbutzes and out in the occupied territories, do their votes count more? I mean, I don't know. I'm asking this question because most Israelis don't feel they're not hard right like that.
No, and they have more vibrant discussions about their country than we have in this one. Hey, Todd, we're about a half hour over, so I need to roll out of here. But it's been a great conversation, and don't apologize. I didn't want to cut it short. I felt like it was necessary that we have it.
Well, anyway, man, stay safe, and Bob, you're doing a great job. And please, everyone who can, support your way. Bob doesn't take Bitcoin yet.
I haven't figured out how to spend it around here, so
And Julian Howard Hughes Assange is not taking it either.
And Frontier doesn't take Bitcoin, so.
God.
By the way, you got a thank you note from Darlene in Connecticut. Thank you, Todd, for mentioning the flying buttresses. They are poetic in sight and sound. And Trump wouldn't know a flying buttress from his own butt. If it ain't layered in gold, then forget it. It's a dump. As far as Trump's campy preferences go, i.e. campy as in the theatrical sense, overly grandiose and ostentatious. Yeah. So, like I said, people have fan clubs here. And by the way, Don, with a note, hey, Bob, it's called or labeled an imperative, i.e. must. Subject line there is shall. Yeah, it is an imperative.
Hey, man, I'm going to be listening this week. We should all be listening this week. And I hope you're...
Oh, I'm already. I've already circled Thursday and Friday in red because we're getting the redacted Mueller report Thursday. You know.
Mm-hmm. How?
The only thing is going to be it's going to be 400 blacked out pieces of paper, and at the end it's going to say, "I yearn for you tragically, A.T. Tapman Chaplin," and that's going to be it.
This is the Matrix, man.
Feels a little like it. Feels a little like it. I just need some. I need some good barbecuing weather, Todd.
You know, I'm gonna tell you. You know, I've been honest to God. I had the grill, and it's been raining here. It's rain. But I opened up everything. I've been grilling inside. I got this Jamaican rub. Oh my God!
Like a jerk rub. Oh.
Yes. Listen, I'm telling you, the people were congregating outside, like right near the house, in front of the house, man. Because I feed people, I get people, share food. But I mean, I could hear them talking. I just sat outside, and because it's so funny, man. It's like, oh my God, this the aroma, the Scotch bonnet, and the thyme. I mean, that's no joke. There's something special about that jerk seasoning. But you know what? I'm going to give away a secret, and I'm not going to say that you use it. I don't know what you do. But anyone who makes their own rub, that if you get that powdered bouillon, a little bit of that in your rub goes a long way.
Oh, yes, it does. Yeah, the stuff that you can scoop out, the stuff that you can scoop out with a spoon, not the cubes.
Yep. The cubes. The cubes, man, that is so passe.
Yeah, hard to work with the cubes.
Hard to work with the cubes, man.
The stuff you buy in the jar is a little more pricey, but man, it pays.
Oh, it's worth, and that's what turned me. I would look at it, and so, I get the Knorr for certain things. Knorr is great. I love that brand. But the other one, the really high-end one, it's an investment. Like, to me, that's an investment in this household. But, a little goes a long way. And it's hard not to cook. It's hard to cook without it. If you really want to get things done right.
I got to do something sooner. I'm just going to, yeah.
And, how are you with the hummus? You don't do hummus, do you?
Oh, I make hummus from time to time.
Have you ever used any salsa in your hummus?
No. I usually, garlic and tahini and chickpeas mostly.
Right. Well, me too. But, I don't know. This guy on the radio one day was saying from California, and I tried it. It didn't work out badly because, tahini is a little pricey sometimes. And then you can substitute peanut butter. But, if you want the red hummus, like a red pepper type hummus with garlic, because some people like traditional. I like all of it. But a little salsa in place of some of the other ingredients, just putting it out there. Because, people who like hummus, they know how to make it, and they do it. And it's wonderful. But, speaking of that type of food, TJ's, man, oh, my God, that falafel mix they have, it's to die for. It is to die for. I had to go to the doctor today, so I was in TJ's today. So, it was a happy day. Man, it's such a happy place. I wish I hope that you can, I hope when you get reincarnated, you can come back in a Trader Joe's.
Well, I'm looking forward. I just want to go over and check out the Aldi in Beckley because I figure there's got to be a little crossover.
Wait, you're like, I just want to keep it simple. I forgot you told me that. Oh, shit.
We're not going to get a Trader Joe's in West Virginia anytime soon. But, hey, there's a Popeyes in Morgantown now, so progress. Todd, have yourself a good one, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, man.
Later. Bye now. Our buddy Todd calling from South Carolina, Stan. Yeah, it's going to get down in the 30s tonight, but we're going to get up to 70 tomorrow, and Tuesday's supposed to be sunny and pretty, so crossing fingers. Probably rain all weekend. And when I get, remember, no program tomorrow night. When I get back on Wednesday, the fundraising goal will be $500 because today was a goose egg. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for to all of our subscribers and everybody who kicks in to keep the program on the air. Thank you so very much. Thank you to all of you who share your precious finite time engaging in the program. Thanks to our all-volunteer staff. Thank you to our news ninjas. Thank you, Brother Deacon Asa, headon.live. Thank you to John Fox in Australia. Thank you, Ben Birch, whiterosesociety.org. Thanks to the hardest-working, bravest people I know, the men and women of Coal River Mountain Watch, crmw.net. 20 years leading the struggle for human rights and environmental justice in Appalachia. And always, always, always. Gina, it's all for you. Later, y'all.